There we go.
How is it working now?
It should be. It looks like it's up.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically
Hey,
speaking.
there it is. I see it now. We're live. We figured it out, guys. We
We,
figured out how to do it. We figured out how to press that button, and here we are. And here you are on this fine Sunday, here to talk about a movie. Not just any movie, Hugh, but one of the best titled movies of all time, I would argue. I
I
think
don't
there are
think there
few
would be.
movies.
You're not going to
I
hear
think
an
there.
argument from me on that.
I think there are few movies as appropriately titled as this one. Yes, today we are talking about Big Trouble in Little China. Hope you're all doing well in the chat. We already have some. Oh, we already have a super chat. Look at that, Hugh. How kind.
Very good.
Blank
I'm sure.
face.
I
Thank you very
don't know
much.
why
I'm
you
going to
didn't
read
want to
it now.
wait to hear what we.
What?
Don't know why you wouldn't wait to hear about that, but yeah, let's talk. Thank you very much, Blankface. We appreciate it. Your
What would
ZAR.
you say? Would you say that this is John Carpenter's best action movie? Question mark. I think the only movie that might top it in terms of action is Escape from New York. Hugh, what do you think?
It's been a
I
while since
personally
I've seen
same. I remember
Escape from
liking
New
it.
York. I do like that movie too. Yeah.
Just in
Um,
terms of sheer action, maybe that one tops it. Though I will say the action in this movie, though the movie is quite clearly a comedy and a bit of a farce, the action is very well filmed and directed and choreographed. Highly enjoyable in terms of the action. Unlike a lot of action comedies for which the comedy takes a break so the action scenes can happen, I feel like the action scenes didn't lose any of the momentum in this movie. They were very entertaining, very compelling, very funny often as well.
hmm
So I think it deserves a lot of credit for the action in this movie. Is it better than Escape from New York? I don't know. It's been too long since I've seen it. So I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to say it's way better. It's better. Maybe I'm going to say it's his best action movie. There's certainly action in The Thing, which I think is his best movie, kind of hands down. But I think maybe not as much action in that as this.
yeah. No,
Anyway,
that's more.
it's a good question. It's a good question. Yes, hello everyone in the chat today. We're going to talk about Big Trouble in Little China. Why? Well, because I finally got around to seeing it. I had not seen it at all in my life until this week, and I happened to throw it on because I've been meaning to get around to it for a long time. And oh boy, did I love it! So we interrupted our regularly scheduled programming, which was going to be Alice in Wonderland, to do a sort of
An Alice
vaguely
in
Alice in
Wonderland
Wonderland
adjacent.
esque.
Yeah.
Yes. We dropped what we were doing because this movie was just so good that we wanted to talk about it. Hugh, you had seen it before,
I
right?
had. Yeah.
You're a fan of the film?
I have been a fan of this film for quite a while. The first time I saw it, I wasn't all that. I wasn't in on the joke the first time I saw it, and I was a little bit confused, and because I was like rather young. But
Sure.
revisiting it over the years, I only grow to appreciate it more. I think this is one of the funniest action comedy movies that you could possibly throw on, and yeah, there's not very many other movies like it.
Oh, yes. I totally agree. I think this is a pretty singular movie in most respects. Obviously, you can tell what the inspirations were, but I think the sum total of all the pieces, all the inspirations that created this movie is a truly singular work of art. I really can't think of any other movies like it. And we'll talk about why, and we'll talk about the X factor of this movie that makes it so unique. But yeah, no, I had the same sort of experience in a condensed form watching this movie because I really knew nothing about it except that it was a highly acclaimed cult classic John Carpenter movie. And then as I was watching it, once I sort of realized what the joke was, I was like, oh, this is hysterical. Like, I wasn't quite sure how funny it was meant to be at first. It kind of gets off to a slow, not slow, but, it's not quite obvious how funny the movie is in the first, like, 2 or 3 minutes, if that makes sense. But then once you sort of realize what the joke of the movie is, it becomes hysterical. I had
Yeah,
such a blast watching this movie. It's very fun and funny, which not actually many movies do both,
yeah.
I would say. because there's a difference, and I think this movie manages to do both quite well.
Yeah, funnily enough, there's only one movie that I can think of that sort of manages to recapture some of this, some of what this movie has going for it, and it was directly inspired by this movie. It's Thor Ragnarok, actually. Taika Waititi was heavily inspired by Big Trouble in Little China for the situation when he was rewriting the character
I
of
can
Thor.
see that.
There's
I can
I
see
noticed
that.
it because I didn't realize that until I was watching this again, and they were pushing him and Wang through the hallway in wheelchairs, and I was like, oh my, wait, that's exactly what happens to Thor in that movie when he's on
Yeah.
the chair coming to meet the master. And yeah, then it all kind of clicked, and you can find any number of articles of Taika Waititi talking about how he broke this movie down to work on Thor Ragnarok, and then apparently promptly forgot about how to do that well when he was making Love and Thunder. But,
Yeah. He sure did forget harder than maybe most people have ever forgotten. Um,
yes, he sure did. Um, I'm seeing a few comments already about how Roger Ebert and some bread tubers and maybe even YMS do not like this movie because of perceived Asian stereotypes, problematic Asian stereotypes. There's a whole backstory about the production of this movie that takes that into account. Actually, we'll talk about that. I'm excited to kind of dive into the
well, here's
history
the
of this movie.
yeah, we'll get all into that, but let's just tackle that straight away. The accusation that this movie engages in sort of Orientalism, it's like, yeah, but it's really funny. It's very like that's kind of the whole joke of the movie is how I mean it's not the only joke of the movie, but it's very much an exaggerated, fantastical, and foreign mythos sort of fantasy movie that some guy who has no idea what any of it is just gets dropped into the middle of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole point. How sort of foreign and strange and fantastical the movie is very much the point, and
So,
it's very, very funny.
so as a lot of people have pointed out, the central joke of this movie that ended up developing is that Jack Burton is essentially a sidekick character who thinks he's the main character. Um,
Yeah, he certainly acts like he's the
yeah,
main character. He thinks he's John Wayne.
he thinks he's John Wayne or Indiana Jones,
Sure.
and but one of the things, the funniest bits of improv that happened while making this movie is that while doing the action sequences and blocking them, Kurt Russell and John Carpenter took every opportunity they could to just knock Jack Burton out of the action as much as possible for every
Yeah.
scene that he's in, and they kept adding, different ways to do that as they were making the movie. One of my favorite bits about the preparation for the movie is that Kurt Russell had, once he got the role, started lifting weights and running in order to sort of, look the part of a muscle-bound sort of heroic guy. And John Carpenter came up to him and basically said, like, yeah, we're not going to teach you any martial arts. You're going to be the only guy in the movie who does no martial arts. And
Yes.
Kurt Russell absolutely loved it. And so while everybody else was practicing kung fu and all of that for the movie, he was busy just getting as beefy as possible to sort of lumber around. And
Oh, the
um,
movie's so funny. I love it so much. It's great. So, yeah, okay. So, the whole thing with the accusation of like Orientalism is like, first of all, a lot of old movies, because like, foreign cultures are strange to us. That's kind of that's was uncontroversial for most of human history. And now it's like, oh, you're not allowed to portray any sort of foreign cultures. Not that this is an authentic one. It's a very highly exaggerated, over the top, like kung fu movie pastiche of sort of Asian cultures.
kung
But the
fu
whole
rock and
point,
roll, is
you
how
kung fu
John
rock and
Carpenter
roll.
described it. He deliberately, and
Yes.
he did his own scores for his movies, like he does for for all of his movies. He did his
Yeah.
score
Oh,
for
this
this
is the
one.
most 80s movie I've ever heard in my life. It really.
Very. Very 80s, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and he deliberately avoided using like Oriental instruments in the
Hmm.
score because he was like, no, 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 this doesn't need a Bruce Lee mysticism soundtrack. This needs to be like synth heavy rock and roll, neon,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's an absolute banger of a soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, just the broader point is that this is a sort of like over. You know what? I was reminded many times of Mortal Kombat watching this movie
Yes, there
for
is that.
reasons that are very obvious. But it's very fun, exaggerated, over the top, kind of fake Hollywood
Well,
fantasy lore,
it's
right? For
heavily inspired also by not just by Hollywood fantasy lore. It's inspired by, as Blankface is pointing out, wuxia films, which are
mm,
sort of like Cantonese B movies from
yeah.
China, which do a lot of this themselves. One of the ones that was heavily inspired the well, we'll get into the screenwriting credits in a bit because that's also a really fascinating part of the story. But one of the ones who inspired the guy who ended up putting this version of it on the page is a Sammo Hung movie called Encounters of the Spooky Kind, which is
Another great
another
title.
really great title about a fat, out of shape, down on his luck martial artist who accidentally summons demons out of his mirror and has to descend into the underworld to rescue his friend and bitchy wife. And it's portrayed in an extremely over the top, goofy kind of way, like almost like a Sam Raimi in Evil Dead 2 sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so this is very heavily inspired by that in almost every facet, and it takes
Yeah,
it and
all
runs
those
with it.
arch, like kitschy, fun, schlocky B movies. And so someone asks in the chat, opinionated Meerkat asks, I just don't know why you wouldn't watch any John Woo film instead of this. Now, here's the thing. This isn't just a schlocky, over the top Chinese fantasy action B movie. It's one of those with a random kind of dumb but brave American thrown into it and who has no idea what's going on. That
Yeah,
is an essential component to the movie and what makes it so unique. And like it isn't just an attempt to do a sort of like Chinese B movie schlock action comedy. Part of the whole bit is that we throw in some guy who thinks he's John Wayne into one of those, but he has no idea what's going on. He thinks he's the main character. He's constantly overwhelmed. Everyone else is in a completely different movie than Kurt Russell. It's very, very funny.
and he's just trying to get his truck back.
Yes. Like it's so funny because there's so much lore dumping in this movie where people are just like throwing paragraphs of lore at him and it's just not sinking in. He's not getting or retaining any of it. And what's really quite funny about it is the way they just bombard you with lore and information about this world and who these people are. You really do feel like Kurt Russell. You're like, what? Who? What? What's going on here? Like
What the hell is that?
It's so good. So that's why you would watch this movie and not just any other John Woo movie or any sort of Hong Kong, fantasy movie.
Yeah, that would be
Because
yeah.
that central joke is really key to understanding it. It's just an American guy who's in over his head and being thrown into the deep end here. Like that's what's so funny. But you even have people like Kim Cattrall's character, whose name I can't remember right now.
Gracie
Like,
Law, the lawyer,
yeah, yeah.
introduces herself
Yes.
by coming in and saying, "No, don't worry, it's just me, Gracie Law." It's it's really really funny how
It's
bumbling
so
every
funny.
white character is in the movie, and how
And
like
here,
the Asians all
yeah.
just sort of like tolerate. They're like, yeah, 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 just
Well,
tolerate
she's
them.
kind of like she understands what's going on because she's like more in this
Well,
world
she
certainly
she says
than
it out loud
Kurt.
multiple times.
Yes. But I think what I really appreciated the more the movie went on, obviously most of the funny lines come from Kurt Russell. It comes from Jack Burton, right? Um, but what I was really impressed by is how funny all the other characters are because it's almost like everyone's the straight man, but Jack Burton, if that makes sense. Everyone else has
Yes.
to be in this really arch, over the top camp fest. and has to deliver it super earnestly, like they believe it 1,000%. And the way they're like throwing out all this lore, and they have to say it really, really fast so the scenes don't get bogged down in all this lore. So they're just flying through all this stuff, and they have to like be super over the top just for Kurt Russell to go, "What?" At the end of it.
What the
It's
hell
so
are you
funny.
talking about? He's
Oh, I
doing
love it.
like a Canadian John Wayne voice, which is like a Midwestern John Wayne, which is absolutely hilarious. The character actors around him in the movie are fantastic. Victor Wong and James Wang, in particular, two
Yeah.
of my favorites of all time, I would say, giving great performances here.
Dr. Diddler has a really funny comment. He says it's written almost like someone who's really angry at screenwriting itself.
Okay, so funnily enough, let's get into the screenwriting situation with this movie, and this is how we'll jump into the history of it, right? So you'll notice a very odd screenwriting credit at the beginning of this movie, not a usual one for something like this. The two writers listed as the screen. So it's listed as written by Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein, adaptation by W.D. Richter.
Okay.
So the reason behind that strange credit, and we're going to go back a little bit here for just some history stuff. The Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein were very heavily inspired by Bruce Lee movies because they saw his first four movies and the amount of money that they made, which is absolutely crazy. I'll give give a quick rundown. His first movie, The Big Boss, made for $100,000, made $50 million.
Hell yeah, dog.
His second movie, Fists of Fury, also made for $100,000, made $100 million.
Hell yeah, dog.
His third movie, Way of the Dragon, $130,000, made $130 million.
Hell yeah, dog.
And so for his fourth movie, he gets Warner Brothers to hand him skyrocket the budget to $850,000. Made $400 million at the box office, which adjusted for inflation is about $2.8 billion.
Hell yeah, dog. That's what I'm talking about.
His fourth movie is essentially Avatar of the time, which is crazy. So these two guys see that and go, "Oh, we should write, a kung fu movie because this is, Hollywood's making them they make superhero
big
movies
numbers."
now." So they write the screenplay for Big Trouble in Little China, a Western set in the 1880s in a gold rush town where a cowboy comes in and finds essentially what we see going on here, a Chinese mystical war in the middle of San Francisco's Chinatown. His horse is stolen in the scuffle, and him and his friend, his friend needs to get his fiance back, he needs to get his horse back, and essentially it follows more like a traditional sort of Indiana Jones type hero story, right? As it goes forward.
Sure.
Now, the studio bought the screenplay, but came to them and said, "Look, we love it. We want to make it. Here's the problem. Westerns are it's 1986. We're not making Westerns as much anymore. That's kind of a difficult ask for, for a modern audience. We're not only asking them now to orient themselves to a, 1880s Western town, we're also asking them to orient themselves to all this Chinese mysticism, fantasy myth stuff in that same amount of time."
Sure.
Now, personally, I don't think the movie sounds bad written that way. I think that's actually kind of an interesting idea. But the studios are not on board to drop the kind of money it'll take to do a period piece like this with all this extra stuff on these two guys. So they ask them, "Will you rewrite it for a modern setting?" And they say, "Fuck you," and they take a hike. They walk away.
Okay.
So the studio brings in W.D. Richter, who is fresh off of writing and directing Buckaroo Banzai. I saw somebody mention it in the chat. Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which is one. My dad is a big
Great
fan of
title.
that movie. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I think he travels through space and time in a Winnebago, if I'm remembering right.
Sure.
Um, he also, W.D. Richter, wrote the 1978 Donald Sutherland Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, I like that movie. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
Good for
so
him.
he comes in and rewrites this with John Carpenter attached, and they kind of take the idea of an Indiana Jones type hero, and they come up with the joke of what if he thinks he's Indiana Jones, but actually he's just the sidekick. And they roll with that. Eventually, a copy of this script leaks because the Asian American community is all pissed off at the idea that a white savior movie like this is coming out. They were not happy about this, so the script
Hmm.
leaks to them and then gets back to the original two writers, who end up suing 20th Century Fox because the studio head had taken their names off of the screenplay. It just said written by W.D. Richter. So that is after some lengthy arbitration with the Writers Guild, that's how we end up getting written by these two and adapted by W.D. Richter, which is strange because you would normally think like maybe story by and then screenplay by. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly where they got that, little ordering
How
there.
they came to this, yeah,
But
I'm not
that's
sure.
why
But that's
that's why we
interesting.
get that very very strange or like unusual writing credit at the start, which is a fascinating thing.
Well, that is really interesting. That original movie certainly could have been good,
Yeah,
obviously. I'm so glad they changed it.
yeah, me too.
Not just the modern setting, the 1980s setting instead of 1880s, but the idea that he thinks he's John Wayne slash Indiana Jones, but he's constantly in over his head and he never really fully grasps what's happening. Like,
Yes,
like
yeah,
that's so it's so funny and it's so well executed.
it very
I'm so glad they
very
made that
is.
change. You know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that, and I love that that sort of informed them the whole way through. Now, however, the people who did not love that idea happened to be the studio. The studio was not as big of a fan, and they were very
Hmm.
confused when they finally delivered
The film.
the film, and they were like, "Wait, what the hell do you mean he's not the hero? What's going on here?" Um,
Well, we'll get into it when we get into the story. He still is a hero. It's just like he never fully understands what's going on. Like there are a lot of things that happen to him that are kind of like at jokes at his expense, but he is a pretty brave guy
yeah, he
and he
is.
does
Yeah,
save a bunch of people. So it's not like the movie is a humiliation ritual for him or anything like that. He's just kind of brave but not the brightest
yeah.
and
He's
never
sort of a buffoon. He's sort of a bumbling
a little
idiot.
bit, but he's it's funny because the movie begins with that opening scene where the tour bus driver is being interrogated about this, and he says like I forget exactly how he phrases it, but he
He
like
showed great courage, is what he says. No, so
yes,
here's the thing: that scene was shot after. That was a pickup scene
oh,
shot and added on
interesting,
afterward because the studio was like, "What the hell do you mean? This is how it goes down." And so they were like, "You need to spell out how that he's that he's a hero." If you listen to the DVD commentary between Kurt Russell and John Carpenter with this, it's hilarious. First off, it's like 10 minutes. You can find it on YouTube, and the two of
okay,
them are just cracking up the whole time, talking
yeah.
about how much fun it was to work on the movie, talking about how crazy it is that nobody got the joke. There's one
Yeah,
part.
that's the most baffling thing. Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
so many of the negative reviews of this movie, because shockingly, this movie isn't rated at like a 9 out of 10. Um, a lot of people did not seem to get the joke, and I'm really surprised because I knew
well,
really nothing about the sort of context surrounding this movie, and then I watch it. I'm like, that's great. I go to look up reviews and stuff, and people just are not getting what the movie's trying to do, which I understand to a degree because it is actually rather unique. But I feel like it's not that hard to grasp what's happening.
no, I don't think it is either. They attribute it on that DVD commentary, I think, and in a couple of other places, it's attributed to the fact that like 1 week after this movie was released, Aliens was released.
Mm,
So that and Rambo 2 came out. So they attribute it to like people really wanted Kurt Russell's character to be like Rambo, and they didn't
sure.
quite understand. And so another reason why the general audience didn't quite understand what was going on. This movie came in at about a $25 million production budget.
Hmm.
The studio, after taking a look at it and kind of not like them not really getting the joke, decided to only spend about an eighth of that value on marketing.
Yeah, that's not going to help you out much.
Yeah, they basically wrote it off. They were like, "This is gonna completely bomb. We should not risk, putting any more money into marketing this." Um, you can kind of hear Kurt Russell's disappointment a little bit when he talks about that on the commentary, because apparently people used to come up to him, like critics and everything were coming up to him after the early screenings, which turned out very well, and they were asking him like, what's it like to know that you're in a movie, you're headlining a movie that's like probably a candidate for movie of the year. What is it like to know that? And he was trying to be humble. He's like, "Oh, well, you never know. We'll have to see when it comes out. These kinds of things are just, it's a joy to work on, and I'm glad we're having fun and that people seem to like it, right?" And he was like, "But inside, I was like celebrating. I was like, hell yeah, this is great." And then it came out.
Yeah.
It only made 11.1 million. Did not
Oof.
even come close to breaking even, and sort of ended John Carpenter's career in the studio system. He went back to making independent movies after this. Um,
Oh, what a shame. What a
yeah,
shame. I can also understand, sometimes a movie just comes out at a time that it's just really not in the right zeitgeist for it. And there's only so much you can do about that. I think this is a really great movie. It's very, very funny, and it is kind of shocking to see how few people appreciated or understood what the movie was going for. Because it's
yeah,
it's really a really singular experience. We've talked about it already, but I love so much of the fun of this movie is something wild happening, and then Kurt Russell going, "What?"
what? What the hell? And
Yeah,
the way he says
like,
it is so sincere.
oh,
It's
it's so
so
funny. I
funny.
think I'm pretty sure it's a scene where they're chasing the first sort of like biker gang guys that who steal the girl, and one of them pulls out a butterfly knife and does a few like tricks at him, and he goes, "What? Where'd you get that?"
What? Where'd you get that? I love it, like when they're chasing them down after they've left the airport, and somebody like he's got the car right in his sights, right, and he's right behind it, and then somebody
Yeah.
else just like comes and cuts him off, and he's just like, "Ah, what the hell?" and then starts honking at them. It's
Oh,
like
it's
somebody
great.
made a compilation on YouTube. It's like 5 minutes or something long of all the questions that Jack asks during the
Yeah.
course of the movie, just back to back to back, and it's almost every single dialogue scene that he's in. Yeah,
Or he cannot fathom what's going on here. It's great.
it is very fun. So Kevo mentions also The Golden Child, an Eddie Murphy comedy, like action kung fu comedy that was coming out around the same time. That movie heavily influenced this one because they rushed production in order to get it out before that movie came out. They wanted
Uh,
to be, because it was very similar. Well, they thought it was similar in the Asian mysticism themes, because that
sure.
movie is about Eddie Murphy as like a cop in California, and a Thai Buddhist, like the new Dalai Lama, basically. A little boy gets kidnapped and he has to go and save him, and the little boy has like mystic powers and everything. It was universally panned, um, absolutely universally panned, but it made $150 million at the box office because it was Eddie Murphy in the '80s. So that's just how it goes. Absolutely crushed it, as he does. But yeah, so that funnily enough though, the rushed production schedule doesn't seem to have influenced them very much at all. For like, if you listen to them talk about it, they're like, it was tight. We got everything done on time, like, every time we needed it. We had enough time to sort of improvise with everybody. There was a lot of good chemistry on set. We didn't miss anything. We didn't have to cut anything for time. Just like a very tight production, and they managed to pull it off. And it's a shame they weren't rewarded for it at the time. But
Yeah.
history looks
So it
kindly
goes.
upon them.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a cult classic movie.
Yeah.
I've been told for ages that I need to check it out and that it's one of his better movies. And I was like, all right, finally got around to it, and it was worth the hype. It was better than I thought it would be, even. So let's I think we
Yeah.
can pretty
Well,
much jump in.
before we jump in real quick, because at the beginning there were two different actors before considered to play the role of Jack Burton before Kurt Russell. Would you like to guess who they were?
Mel Gibson.
That close, but no.
No, he wasn't one of those two.
No.
Okay. Um, Harrison Ford.
Think more Western.
Oh,
The first one you will not like. You would not expect it, especially considering the fact that they knew it was going to be a comedy.
yeah. I don't know who Western stars were at the
Clint
time.
Eastwood.
Clint. Oh, okay.
They went for Clint Eastwood first, and he said no. Absolutely
Can't imagine.
not.
Can't imagine why. No, I don't think he. I mean, have I ever seen Clint Eastwood in a comedy? I don't think I have. Have you? I'm sure he's done.
Unless you want to count Gran Torino as a comedy, where he's consistently making incredibly racist Asian jokes, and it's pretty funny, but it's played very straight. It's more of a drama than anything.
Yeah.
So no,
Yeah,
I've never seen
he
him.
would have been.
He would
Don't
not
think
have
he would have
been
been right
a
for
good
this.
choice. The next one stars in your favorite movie,
Wait, Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. Was
You know what? I could see that. I could see that working. Not as well, but I could see that working. Yeah, he's got. That would be pretty funny. He would come across more skeezy, probably.
A little bit, yeah. A little less wholesome than Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I like the wholesomeness of Kurt Russell's character in this movie. There's something about him that he just seems like a fairly genuine guy. Like he's kind of performing the sort of like Han Solo character, but he's really not Han Solo, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That tracks. That absolutely tracks.
It's really funny to picture Jack Nicholson in this now.
It would have been. I'd like to imagine it's the same with the mullet, but like Jack Nicholson's hairline.
Yeah.
It would have been. There would have been something.
All right, I think we should jump into
Let's
it.
do
So,
it.
if at the very off chance that anyone listening to this has not seen Big Trouble in Little China yet, you should go watch it before we spoil it. I feel like we've described the gist of the movie to you, and we've both praised it heavily. But I think it's worth watching before we spoil it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Come back to the stream another time. We will be spoiling the movie. So I think it would be hard to ruin the experience of actually watching it. So,
Yeah.
be warned.
Yeah, we are gonna jump. So it starts off with that scene with Egg being interrogated by his own lawyer.
His name is Egg, and it's his own lawyer. Yeah, there's just so much. It's kind of funny. Like, I wasn't sure how funny the movie was supposed to be when that scene started, but in hindsight, it's very funny.
I love the way they did his hair for this too, because he kind of looks a little like. Obviously, this was not what they were going for, but he kind of looks a little bit like Anton Chigurh, the hairline,
A little bit.
which is it's
A little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty great. He's being interrogated by his own lawyer because a city block exploded in green flame, and people are saying that he was involved, and they're looking for Jack Burton and his truck. He reveals to his lawyer that sorcery is real by making some lightning appear between his palms, and it's done in a very melodramatic way. The lighting in this scene is great. It reminds me of Chinatown a lot.
A very harsh sort of Venetian blind noir lighting in this
Yeah.
scene. Yeah,
The lawyer is just sitting in darkness. There's a woman, court reporter behind taking the deposition. And just
yeah.
like you can only imagine, like, her typing out like lightning between hands. Not
It's quite, yeah. Dr. Dibley says he has a court stenographer in his office as a defense lawyer. That's pretty funny. Um, what I like about this movie, I think it also contributes to how many people didn't get the joke, is that it's shot the same way it would be if it wasn't a joke. That makes sense in terms of the sort of noir lighting in certain scenes. And it's like it's shot the same way it would be if it was actually just a serious thriller about all the same stuff. In terms of the way it's lit, in terms of the way it's shot, and so I that's a point of praise for me because I like that you kind of have to, if you don't know that it's supposed to be funny, you have to kind of discover that it's funny. And I think where I first sort of discovered that the movie was supposed to be funny is when we're in the when we're in the semi with
the like the very
Kurt
next
Russell.
scene as they
Yeah,
yeah. Um,
like just the way he talks and the way and like the way I love. Okay, we'll get to it in a second what he actually says, but he's sort of giving advice over the radio, doing his little radio
just
show.
like one of my favorite parts of the movie is he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well,
so he tells him to leave Jack Burton alone. You know, he showed a
yeah.
great courage, and we owe him we're indebted to him, right? And
We are in his debt. He showed great courage, right? He's
yeah,
like, leave him alone. He was a hero, is basically what he was saying.
yeah. And we cut from that to the beat drops. The it is the synthiest, like 80s sort of like rock and roll kind of thing. I love when that drops and you just see this 18 wheeler tearing down a 2-lane highway in the middle of the rain. It's like coming up and down. And we get into the cab, and Jack Burton is wearing sunglasses as he's driving
Through the
with
rain.
no hands in the rain. He's holding his CB radio and giving advice in the one hand and eating a giant sub with the other at the same
Mhm.
time, wearing sunglasses. And as he says, as he told his last wife, honey, I never drive any faster than I can see, and it's all in the reflexes. And then he takes a big bite of the sandwich. And
Yeah.
it's great. This is,
Yeah. There's it's I wish I had seen it again before talking about it on the stream because instantly I was like, oh, this is a movie I feel like I want to rewatch over and over because there are just so many good lines, so many fun quotable lines. And I feel like part of what's so great about this opening scene with him is that he thinks he's Harrison Ford, he thinks he's John Wayne, he thinks he's Indiana Jones and all that sort of stuff, and he's like giving his advice in these lines that he thinks sound really cool and badass, but they're way too long and they're clunky. like you know, it's like they're not short and pithy like you might expect them to be. Um, so I just want to
but a
read
lot
some
of
of
them
this.
fall very flat because they're just like
Yes.
so vague as to be practically meaningless, which is really funny. Uh,
Yes. So, like, some of them really quick. So, this is Jack Burton of the Porkchop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening. It's like I told my last wife. I says, honey, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflexes. And then he takes a bite of his sandwich. Says, you just listen to the Porkchop Express and take his advice on a dark and stormy night. When someone, this is okay, so this is the one I had in mind with the like overly long and not actually clever at all. He says, when some wild-eyed maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your head up against the
the
barroom
back of your
wall.
favorite head up against a
Oh yeah,
barroom
yeah,
wall,
yeah. He
which
looks
is
you
another.
crooked. He looks you crooked in the eye and asks you if you've paid your dues, and you just stare that big sucker back in the eye and remember what Jack Burton always says: "Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check is in the mail." Like,
I love that line so much. Yes, sir, the check is in the mail. The way he says it, he delivers it like it's the ultimate mic drop moment.
yeah. So like
It's it's so
he,
good.
he he provides like so much unnecessary detail in that. Like when some wild-eyed maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against the barn wall, looks you crooked in the eye and asks if you've paid your dues. You just like, have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check is in
Check is in the
the
mail.
mail. It's so good. It's so
And then,
funny.
like, right after that, we see him driving across the Golden Gate Bridge. And he's just like, yeah, like, the rain starts coming down. This is where he finally takes off the sunglasses. And the rain starts coming down so hard that, like, you can't even see him through the mirror anymore, or through the window anymore. And so he finally decides to turn his windshield wipers back on. And he says, well, you see, I'm not saying that I've been everywhere and I've done everything. But I do know it's a pretty amazing planet we live on here. And a man would have to be some kind of fool to think we're all alone in this universe. And it just sort of cuts away from him, which is.
It's like, oh, is he talking about aliens? Like what?
I love imagining like turning on your radio and just hearing this come through. Like,
oh, I would love that. I would listen to the shit out of that. That's so great.
it's like this is GTA radio, like 100. But like Theo Vaughn could have done.
I especially love the way he delivers it because he's definitely doing something of a John Wayne voice. He's like, and a man would have to be some kind of fool to think we're all alone in this universe.
Lancelot.
You just imagine he's gonna say Pilgrim at the end of everything. He says.
Was he supposed to be doing a John Wayne impression, or was that Kurt Russell just doing an exaggerated tough guy voice? It was meant to be a John Wayne impression because he had forgotten by the time the DVD commentary came out, and John Carpenter has to remind him that the reason he's doing the voice is because they knew it had originally been a Western. He's like, oh, right.
But it's so perfect. Like, the character in the universe of the movie thinks he's John Wayne. He likes John Wayne. He looks up to him, and he wants to be that kind of guy, for sure. And so the impression is kind of in universe makes sense as well. It's character motivated.
Fun little stunt fact as well. Kurt Russell had to learn to drive that 18-wheeler for this scene because John Carpenter was like, I'm not paying a stunt driver, you're gonna have to do it. And he was very nervous because he does drive it into a crowded set that they use for the Chinatown district, and it is dark, and he was like, I'm so scared I'm gonna hit somebody by accident and we're gonna have a lawsuit on our hands. But yeah, he drives it in pretty much every scene.
Yeah.
Even though you can't really see him, which is funny.
Yeah, there's no need for it to be him. They just didn't want to pay a stunt driver.
Exactly.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, so just in terms of the dialogue in this movie and the sort of central joke around Jack Burton is that he fancies himself an action hero and he has the bravery, right? And he has the sort of gumption and the willingness to just throw himself into these situations, but he's not actually very competent. He's not actually very clever.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting line to walk because I could see some modern writer wanting to do something like this and just having the movie take a dump on him every 5 seconds. But it really doesn't feel mean-spirited, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, everybody sort of treats him just like a friend, right? Like they're very patient with him. They don't nobody talks shit about him, to his face or anything. Nobody rolls their eyes at him or anything. They just kind of go like, "Yeah, sorry we're getting you into all this mess," basically.
Yeah. I especially love it. This is a scene coming up a little while later where they're all discussing what they should do about the situation of the girl getting kidnapped in the gangs, and he's on the phone with his insurance for his truck. Like, I feel like that encapsulates the vibe of the movie pretty well because they're doing all this lore dumping about all the different factions. They're all fighting each other and who might have kidnapped the girl and everything, and he's just trying to get someone on the phone to fulfill his insurance quote. It's so good. Anyway,
Yeah, so he pulls into Chinatown to drop off the payload, and he ends up gambling all night, and winning the game. He wins about $1,000, and his buddy Wang, old friend of his who he beat, decides to take him for double or nothing. He wants to slice a bottle in half and win his money back, basically, right? Because
yeah.
he goes to do it, puts it on its side. And funny because I didn't remember this. I thought he was going to go from the top down, but he puts it on its side. Kurt Russell, Jack Burton takes the bet, and he goes to hit it, and it snaps up, and Jack Burton catches it, right in the palm of his hand. And it's all in the reflexes. He says that for the second time. That'll pay off later. And so now Jimmy owes him an extra $1,000.
It just as a little detail, I quite like that he says nothing or double instead of double or nothing.
Yeah, nothing or double.
It's just fun.
Yeah. They all leave. None of them are happy with him having won all the money and everything.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to go. But he does not let Wang go without him, because he's like, oh, I got to go to the airport now. I got to go pick up,
Oh, sure you do.
Yeah, sure, yeah. With $1,000 over my dead body. So he decides to drive him in the truck. There's another little fun line, right, where he says he's going to follow him. And then Wang goes to get in his truck. He says, I thought you said you were going to follow me. He goes, yeah, and then I came to my senses. And so he gets him into his cab instead, which is just like, I don't know.
It's even better than that. He's like, I'll follow you. And he's like, you don't trust me? That makes me sad. He says, it reminds me of an old Chinese joke. He's like, save it. I'll give you a lift. Get in. Like, he doesn't want to hear the old Chinese joke. So you were going to follow me, Jack. He's like, I know. And then I came to my senses. Yeah, it's a great line. It's so many great lines in this
Duke
movie.
Says, sometimes I wonder if Kurt Russell's charm improves not only his characters, but also how everyone else treats him on screen. I think for sure. Yeah, I think that he's got a very singular personality for a particular type of movie. And he can play multiple different kinds of character, right? So we've got Snake Plissken. The John Carpenter 3 is a big one to highlight, right? Escape from New York, we got Snake Plissken, who's more of the
like an
Clint
actual
Eastwood,
badass
kind of guy. Then you've got
really quick. Someone mentioned earlier that would this movie be better if he was Snake Plissken? And no, the answer is no. You want a guy who thinks he's a badass but isn't. That's what makes the movie so funny. Like, Snake Plissken is actually just cool. Jack Burton thinks he's cool. And that really, you were getting to it, but just how different his characters are in all three of those movies.
Yeah, that's a good way of showcasing it, because MacReady in The Thing is he's more like Snake Plissken, but he's a little bit more calculated, right, and a little more.
He's certainly impressive, but he's not like action hero cool guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a loner too, and he kind of keeps away from everyone else as well. He prefers to drink and get beat by the computer in chess.
Exactly. And then in this one, he's a kind of a charismatic, able to get along with everybody kind of goofball with a cocksure attitude that may not be entirely justified.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, he's the type of guy who spends all night, gambling, at the end of his route in Chinatown with, his restaurant owner friend, which you get a little bit of the exposition dump here too, which is really funny. Like the way that everybody else speaks to him in exposition dumping, he's like, I own a restaurant, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I just love this movie, and I'm just so impressed with all the other actors because they have absolutely insane dialogue to get through, and they give some of the funniest over-the-top campy performances. I'm just so impressed with how well they do what they're meant to do in this movie, because they don't really get any of the comedy glory in the movie. They rarely get to actually say funny things, but everything they say is so important to the whole joke of the movie. And I just think they deserve all the credit in the world for how well they get through all those, like, because they have to, as earnestly as possible, just say, even though it makes no sense for him to say it, like, I own a restaurant. Like, even though he would already know that.
Yeah,
So good.
it's pretty great. People are talking about how a lot of action stars drive sports cars, whereas Jack drives an 18-wheeler. This movie might be the most badass that an 18-wheeler has ever been on screen.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. So him and Wang are driving to the airport, and Wang reveals that he's picking up a girl, and the the line that Jack responds with is just like, "Oh wow, a girl! Wow, yeah, I picked up a lot of girls, or a girl where from?" It says from China. He's like, "Oh wow, I picked up a lot of girls, but never a girl from China," which is a really strange thing to say. All
Yeah.
right, I'd never done that. I mean, I picked up girls from everywhere else, but never from China. Is she pretty?
And then, not just like, just to the point I was just making, what he has to say is the most kind of cliche, amateurish writing possible, because it really wants you to make this. It really wants to be like a schlocky B movie. So then he just jumps right into, I'm going to marry her, Jack. I've known her since we were kids. I haven't seen her in 5 years. I came here alone. I worked my fingers till they bled. Before you knew me, I slept on the floor. I saved every nickel to bring her here because I love her so much. I can't eat, sleep, or think properly without her anymore. She'll put my whole life in order. Like,
And he kind of like yawns and looks away when he's saying that too.
Yeah. It's so funny. Because that's what's so impressive about this movie, is that Jack Burton is kind of the audience member who's like, yeah, whatever, all this exposition, all this lore dumping, I don't really care. But then the result of that is just he's way in over his head in all of this stuff.
Yeah, and he reveals, oh man, that's why the bottle didn't. I wasn't able to slice the bottle. My mind and my spirit are going north and south. Like gee, it like kind of slaps his knee when he says it, which is also just like kind of funny, right? And then
Yeah.
Jack gives him the sort of look like, yeah, okay, sure you did. So they get to the airport. They're waiting for Mei Lin to get off the plane, and this is when Jack Burton gets his meet cute with Gracie Law, who is standing around with a Polaroid. And Jack asks Wang who she is. He's too smitten with his arriving fiance to understand, right? And this is where we get a little bit of the exposition. He says she has green eyes. You know how rare that is, which is kind of fun because it's our first little hint that Grace also has green eyes. Setting something up later in the movie. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and so he goes, "How can you tell from here?" He goes, "Not her, she's trouble. Mao Yin." And so Jack hears that Grace is trouble and walks right up to her. And
he says, "Can I ask you a serious question?" She says, "Absolutely not." And then he just goes anyway.
Yeah, "Can I ask you a serious question?" "Absolutely not." "Well, then would you ever consider just jumping right into..." "Sure, but never with a person in your condition." "Well, let's talk about my condition. Just what's wrong with it?" She says, "You should try standing downwind where I am. It's Miller time." And he kind of smirks and goes, "You know what I say when it's Miller time?" It's like, what could he possibly have loaded in the chamber for this? I don't like. It's such a funny,
because he gets interrupted there.
It's a funny character trait that like every time something is happening, he always goes like, "You know what I say when this is happening?"
Really specific niche scenario. He just what I always say, and every time he says, "You know what I always say," it's completely different. Like at the very end, he has a final, like, "You know what Jack always says," and it's completely different from the thing he said at the very beginning of the movie.
And a lot of it is just like It's just so vague. It's like there's one
Yeah.
point where he's just like, you know what old Jack always says? What the hell? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you do say that a lot.
That one he does
that
always
one,
say.
that one you do.
To be fair.
Never really in like these kinds of situations. The others, like, but yeah, you know what I say when it's Miller time, and then he gets interrupted by some some like '80s street thug gang members in like black jeans and bandanas, and one of them is wearing a really goofy pair of glasses, like
Yeah.
like almost you could say like racist Asian eyes over his.
You could
It's
maybe if you
it
wanted
maybe
to.
it is funny. It is
Yes.
very funny, the costume.
Oh, I
Um,
love the costumes in this movie. They're
yeah.
incredible.
Oh my god. It reminds me a lot of like The Warriors. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love the way that they do the gang member designs, and then the villain, like the arch villain designs are also really strong. So he's interrupted by the gang, and now the plane is disembarking. So chaos is about to break loose. There's a different Asian girl who arrives that Gracie Law calls for. And she realizes that who she is from the Polaroid. But the gang members are moving in on her as well. And then Mei Lin
Well, I
arrives.
quite like when 'cause I think it's Gracie Law. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, the Lords of Death, street gang, punks from Chinatown. What are they doing here?
Yes, yeah.
Which I just think is the perfect example of the type of arch campy performances everyone else is giving. Like, so she has to dump that information, even though no one asked, which is great. But I love that, like, the Lords of Death, a street gang, punks from Chinatown. What are they doing here? It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Anyway.
Yeah, so Tara arrives, and Grace calls out to her. The Lords of Death start moving in on her. Miao Yin arrives, and Wang calls out for her to go and pick her up. And then the Lords of Death make their move on Tara and grab her. And in comes Jack Burton for his first big heroic standoff. And this is the part where he grabs the guy who's grabbing Tara, turns him around and goes, "Let's you and me have a little talk, friend." And the guy pulls out a switchblade and points
he
it in
whips
his face.
around and he goes, "What?
What?
Where'd you get that?
Where'd you get that?"
Like, I can't overstate. I think there are so many good jokes in the movie, but that was the first one to like really have me die laughing. I just think that's the funniest response you could possibly have. He confronts this guy. He's, let's you and me have a little talk, friend. He pulls out a knife and he goes, "What?
What? It's not even like a what? It's like a what? Like he curls his nose and looks at it like he's never seen a knife before.
Yeah. It's so good. Oh, it's so good.
And in the ensuing chaos,
confused.
yeah, he's just a confused boy and wandering around, But
Yeah.
in the ensuing chaos, Miao Yin gets grabbed instead of Tara, and they leave with her at gunpoint. Grace and Tara have escaped. The Lords of Death grab Miao Yin. They run away. Jack and Wang give chase, and Tara and Grace hide in the parking garage as they come running through. They play a little game of chicken with a speeding Corvette, I think. The nice car.
Yes, and I love the way it's shot too.
Yes.
Like the action, choreography, and editing and cinematography, it's all really good. All the action is actually quite entertaining. Like above average for an action movie.
Yeah,
so
let me see if I can get
too.
the shot of Miao Yin in the trunk, because
it's
think
such a cool
that's
shot.
a really cool shot.
Yes. Yes, it certainly is.
Keep talking for a second. I'm gonna work on getting that up.
Copy that. Yeah, so and that's what's really impressive about the movie too. Of course, it's John Carpenter. He's quite competent at this sort of thing, but it's actually just a really solid action movie as well as being a fun adventure fantasy comedy. The action is incredibly well directed. There's so many shots in this movie that are really, really impressive. It's very cool in a way that I don't get that feeling watching a lot of movies anymore, where it's just like, damn, this is an objectively cool movie. Kevo says Jack Burton is the everyday loser we've all met. He's unimpressive but lovable. Well, here's the thing, like he is. I don't know. There's something very. It's. I don't want to say he's like a loser so much because there is something very charismatic and impressive about his willingness to just jump into things. Like, there's a street gang he's told are trouble and they have weapons and things like that. And they're trying to kidnap a girl. And he just walks right up to her and he's like, hey, friend, let's you and me have a chat. And then when he pulls out a knife, he's like, "What the hell?" He's
What?
like he's not ready for just how crazy everything gets in this movie, but he is kind of impressive in a way. I think it's just a really interesting line they walk with the movie. Because I wouldn't necessarily call him a loser necessarily, but he is just kind of an everyman who has more confidence and bravado than maybe he really has earned, but he definitely has a lot more than the average guy.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the shot that I'm talking about of Miao Yin in the trunk, and it goes on for a little bit here, but this is such a unique way of filming this, and
Yeah.
it's really it's really creepy in a way that I think only John Carpenter can construct, right? Like this is something that I don't think unless you're imitating him, you're not gonna come up with the idea to shoot this way. But you could see this. It feels almost like it's in a different kind of movie, right? It feels like something almost out of like a Stranger Things, right? Which I know is very
Yeah,
heavily
well that's why I
inspired, but
mentioned earlier that the movie is shot exactly the same way it would be if it wasn't a comedy to a large
yes,
degree. There are some exceptions to that where the way it's framed is clearly like for like a fun, almost almost like silent film comedy gag. There are certainly some of those. Like there's one fight that happens later in the movie where we're kind of looking through a doorway and people are running past the doorway in the background. It's kind of Scooby-Doo-esque. But in general, the lighting and everything is kind of moody, like it's a thriller in the dark underworld of San Francisco.
and the way
And
she's
so
playing it in this scene too, like the eyes, like barely an expression on her face. Her eyes are kind of wide, and it's just
yeah.
like it's really interesting.
Well,
It's a
everyone plays it super earnestly,
yeah,
which I think really helps with the joke, but also, makes it feel as real as a movie like this can.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they give chase, and he also I think this is around the point where he says like "son of a bitch must pay," in order to
Oh,
justify his
yes,
going along with them.
which is a great line and kind of comes out of nowhere in the best way possible. Like son of a bitch must pay.
It's
It's in keeping with his general sort of like trying to have a cool badass line for every moment. Like that's what it feels like to me.
yeah,
But it's kind of clumsy in a way. It's
yeah. And so this is like as they're giving chase, um, this is when he starts asking questions. And he asks, "All right, what's going on, Wang? Why'd they steal your girl? You tell me. How come it's not safe to walk in Central Park, huh? Or to give a stranger a lift anymore because the world's full of crazy people, Jack hoodlums." It's like he's deliberately avoiding answering the question, which is also kind of funny. They're keeping Jack very much to the outside of the situation, even though he is pretty much like putting himself right into it, right from the start, you know. And he brings up that Grace knew something was up, um, and Wang tells him stay away from her. She's nuts. She's a lawyer, which is also she's a lawyer. She's a lawyer, and he responds with, "She's a what?" Which is also just a really funny way to respond to that. And then the truck cuts him off, and he immediately follows that up with a "What the hell?" Which not not on purpose. The truck has not is not in cahoots with them or anything. He's just confused. He doesn't he doesn't quite understand what's going on. Um, she's nuts. She's a lawyer. She's a what? I love it. So then Wang gives in. He's like, they got a clubhouse where they all go and sharpen their knives as Jack fills in. And this is the next scene. We get introduced to Egg Shen, bus driver, tour bus for tourists in San Francisco Chinatown. He's doing his usual job. Victor Wong, one of my favorite character actors of all time. Also of Tremors and Three Ninjas fame. I don't know if you ever watched the Three Ninjas back in the 90s, Jamie, but that one was a big hit in my house.
That sounds familiar.
It's
What
kind of
what
like
was the
a
three
kind of like
ninjas?
a ripoff, like a ripoff of Karate Kid and Home Alone at the same time.
That sounds familiar. That sounds like something I watched in daycare.
Yeah, I
Hold on.
I had that movie on VHS, watched it on repeat. Big fan. Victor Wong sort of plays the Mr. Miyagi character. Um,
Oh, yep. I've seen this. Yes, definitely watched this at day camp, like
yeah, and
daycare.
they get their masks, their revenge masks, and they fight off the burglars who break into their house. And it's schlocky Home Alone type stuff. Victor Wong, great in that movie, great in Tremors, great in this movie. Giving his tour on his Egg Foo Young tour bus, which while I was watching it the first time last night, inspired me to go grab some Chinese food from around the corner. Get some of that Americanized Chinese,
Yeah.
because I can't beat it. The one kid wore blue, one wore green, and Tum Tum wore yellow. Yes, Tum Tum is the one whose name is more likely to not be forgotten. The green one was Rocky, and the blue one was Colt. I
Glad
remember.
we have that settled.
Yeah. So there you go. Um, so we get the him giving his speech about California Gold Rush families came to San Francisco and founded Chinatown. And as he turns down one of the streets, here comes Jack Burton in the 18-wheeler. I love it when he starts like panicking in Cantonese. So one of the other things about this movie, the characters, they never put subtitles for the Chinese that they speak, and they're speaking a mix. Like all the actors just speak whichever dialect they are most familiar with. So some are speaking
Yeah.
Cantonese, some are speaking Mandarin, and it just goes back and forth. Like it's not really, there's no rhyme or reason to it really. It's just whatever they were most accurate with. But by not putting the subtitles in the movie, they definitely keep you in the Jack Burton perspective of being on the
Yes.
outside looking in, which is a really
Yes.
nice touch for what you're
Oh,
doing for
yes,
the audience there.
absolutely, because Jack Burton is the audience insert. He's the fish out of water that never actually learns to adapt.
Yes.
Because a lot of other action movies might have a fish out of water main character, but eventually they sort of learn the lore of whatever world they're in. They learn the history. They learn who the factions are. He just gets bombarded with this information, but never actually gets his footing. And the audience is kind of in the same boat, which I think is a really clever little bit of filmmaking and
Yeah,
storytelling. And I think the choice to not subtitle any of the Chinese really helps with that. Really puts you in his shoes.
very much so. Yeah, and as they're given like the whole time this is happening, he's playing that like bassy synth music that sounds a lot like the opening of Stranger Things, that like do 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 do
Oh
do
yeah,
do,
yeah, yeah.
which is also a great touch because it's like it's really tense fun music, just kind of adding to the scene as they're going. And he turns down the alley after narrowly avoiding the Egg Foo Young tour bus. He turns down a different alley into the main Chinatown set, this narrow street, and he
Oh yeah,
turns.
I really wanted to note that I really like the transition from the on location stuff into the giant backlot set. It's
Yeah,
really cool. I mean, you can tell when it happens, but in a sort of charming way that I quite like. And I think it really works for a movie like this that's so over the top and stylized.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
most of the budget too was spent on the effects and on building this set. Like
Yeah,
this
I
set
mean it's
is,
huge. I get it.
yeah, huge.
They're-
And Janet Jackson actually used it for a music video a couple months after they shot this, and I think there's more screen time in her music video on that set than there is in the movie,
that's pretty
which is
funny.
kind of funny.
So they
Um,
built this giant set to basically have one giant fight in it, and that's it.
yep.
Also admirable.
Yes, a bold move. And he turns down the alley, and basically his truck ends up right in the middle of a gang war,
Yeah. The
which is
the gang war reminded me, I feel like it was definitely at least partially inspired the one in Anchorman.
yeah,
Where the giant
Anchorman definitely inspired by this. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
because of course there's the giant gang war that just kind of gets over the top really, really quickly. It really escalates fast, if you will, and that's just what this felt like when I was watching it. Because and I love every time a new faction shows up, he's like, "Who the hell are they?" And he has to be, he's like, "Wait, no, 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 those are the good guys. We like them."
yeah, he turns down and sees the procession coming. He goes, "What is this? A parade?" And it's a funeral. They're the good guys. And he looks at, he's like, maybe we should try a different alley. What do you say? And then he looks in his mirror and he sees the ones dressed in black marching. He calls them singdings and asks if red turbans mean bad guys. And I love when Wang just goes, "Don't make a sound," as if like they are so involved in fighting each other that they will not notice the
The
18
giant
wheeler
18-wheeler, yeah.
in the middle of the street. He pulls a knife out and he's like nervously handling it in the cabin while everything gets set up, an old west showdown.
Yeah. Just
I
don't
love
make a
the
sound.
the
They won't
bald
notice.
Chinese guy with the goatee and the two pistols, who doesn't
Yeah.
use the pistols. He runs in to fight hand to hand against the rest of them.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah,
vision is
George
based
Rex
on
says their vision is based on movement. Exactly. You know what else this bit reminded me of is when he was okay. So he says, "They're Chang Sings." He says, "Don't panic, Jack. They're okay. They're the good guys." And then he says, "Man, these guys, these Singdings." So he just completely gets the name wrong in a very funny way. It reminds me of a little bit, which is funny that you mentioned it could have been Jack Nicholson because it reminds me of The Shining when
when he keeps mishearing everything.
yeah, he keeps mishearing everything, and yeah, I don't know. It's just something really funny about him not like hearing the name but not really following. He never really finds his footing. He hears the names and he doesn't actually remember them. And then he just says the wrong one, and no one ever corrects him. No one ever rolls his eyes. No one ever rolls their eyes at him getting the name wrong or anything like that, or corrects him. They just allow him to get it wrong.
He's
Pretty funny.
just like me playing Fallout New Vegas, basically. What's this? I'm not reading that. Who are you? Well, we are
Yes,
Kaisar's
exactly.
Legion. What?
Where'd you
What
get
the
that?
hell?
Yeah, he's never stopping to read any of the scraps of paper or diary entries. He's just going full bore, full steam ahead. Does not care about the lore of the world or who the factions are.
Donald's angry
He's
has
just trying to get
corrected
back
us.
to his truck.
This is the 10 wheels, not the 18 wheels. It is only an 18 wheeler when the trailer is on board.
Oh, you are right, but boo. Boo you. Who cares? We're
And
having
champagne
fun.
only comes from France. Yes, yeah. So we get our first big action set piece around the truck while our two main characters just sit in the cab and watch it, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's like chaos is erupting. There's some great effects where they're like breaking each other's arms and legs and just whooping each other's ass.
Oh,
And
really, really quick, just because there's so many great lines. He says, "These guys are animals, Jack." He's like, "What's happening, Wang?" He says, "Chinese standoff." And he goes, "A what?"
a what? You missed the part earlier where he tells Jack is like, "Don't trust Grace, or don't bother with Grace. She's trouble. She's nuts. She's a lawyer." And he goes, "She's a what?"
It just like half of his lines in the movie are just him confused and like not hearing things and
And
just
just like just being like, "What's a
uh,
lawyer?"
it's so funny.
And
Uh,
right so as the chaos seems to be winding down and the good guys seem to be winning, a big ball of green flame explodes out of the end of the alley, and somebody comes front flipping out of it in essentially what I assume um, reminded you most of Mortal Kombat, like
yes.
a Raiden costume.
Yes,
It's a little bit
exactly.
more traditional. I love the look. So these are the three storms. I
I
love
love
the
all the big
costume.
hats.
The big
Oh
hat
yeah, they're
is
great.
fucking cool, man.
Yeah, man.
It's a cool costume. The guy with the lightning when he rides down looks so he looks so badass, man.
Yeah.
And they each do their little, martial art arm waving, posing, and everything. So
Yeah.
Thunder is the first one.
Let's talk really quick about the visual effects, especially the lightning effects. I find them very charming, and I
Yes.
wish we still did things like this. You know what I mean? Because are they the most realistic lightning effects? No, but they look great.
Yeah.
They look a lot like the lightning effects in Star Wars and things like that. It's great.
Well,
I
yeah.
love it, and
What's a little wild about this is it doesn't look that much worse than like what we're doing for Ragnarok. Really, like the
yeah.
lightning effects in it doesn't look that much
No,
worse than that.
it looks good. By calling it charming, I don't mean to imply that it actually looks bad or even all that dated, really. I think it's a fun effect, and I think you could just keep using stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't see. I
But
don't see why you couldn't. I
I mean,
think
it's complicated. I mean, you could do it now, but I'm sure at the time this had to be sort of like hand drawn or hand painted
they,
over. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
So Wengxia movies did that a lot.
Yeah.
Hand drawn effects over the finished film, and that's what they did for this one.
It looks great.
It looks
It
fantastic.
feels very handmade in a good way. I think it's worth the trouble of doing it handmade and for real, you know. Obviously, this movie spent a lot in its budget and it was a total flop. So, it's easy
Yeah,
to say, but I do think, their commitment to detail and doing things handmade like that really helps the movie. I think there's very little in this movie that actually feels dated from a visual effects perspective. It feels very fresh. It feels, way better than a lot of modern movies are, especially
that's
the
for
ones
sure.
that rely really heavily on bad CG. As a quick tangent,
Mhm.
right? I just saw a trailer for the newest and hopefully last Final Destination movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, I think they're calling it. And in the trailer for that on television, they started off by showing the best stuff from the second movie, which is the log truck car accident scene. And then there is basically the gist of the trailer was, hey, remember how great that action set piece was? Well, here's a new Final Destination movie, but the whole thing is just relying on really bad, really amateurish looking CGI instead. And it's like showing them back to back is a mistake, first of all, in the trailer, because you look back at that scene from Final Destination 2, and I don't like the Final Destination movies really at all, but the sort of the extent they went, the degree to which they used practical effects and spent the money doing it all for real in that log truck sequence is really, really commendable. It looks great. It's the most iconic thing in the entire stupid franchise. And clearly they're trying to bank on that. But then they show everything they're doing in this new movie, and it just looks like trash. It just looks cheap, just looks like garbage. And so I don't know. That's just a brief tangent I wanted to go on because I saw the new trailer for that god awful looking movie and I was like, damn, you do it for real and it immediately elevates your movie. Like if you go back and watch any of these movies, even if they're kind of a little bit on the schlocky side, something like Speed, all the visual effects in that movie look fucking amazing. Like they're setting off these giant explosions and it all feels real. You would you would create so much production value, perceived production value for an audience member if you did literally any of these stunts for real. You did any of these visual effects where there's an actual flame on set rather than just doing it with CGI. I know it's cheaper, but you create so much more perceived value in the movie immediately by just taking the time to do any of this stuff for real or doing it sort of hand drawn. I don't know, man, because you look. I was just ranting about the new Final Destination
It
movie
looks
trailer.
terrible. Yeah.
It looks awful. It looks so awful. It looks like the cheapest, laziest thing you could possibly do. And it's nice to watch old movies like this. Obviously they were tedious to do. It's tedious to hand paint or hand draw all the little, lightning effects over individual frames, but it looks great and holds up decades later. So
It sure does.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny in that same DVD commentary when John and Kurt are talking about this, they they say one of the things that people are frequently talking about with this movie is that maybe we were a little ahead of our time when we made it. Have you heard that one before? It turns out John Carpenter, a lot of his movies, people tend to think, especially with their effects and the way that he handles them, tend to be
Sure.
ahead of their time a little bit, or to be a little more timeless than people tended to appreciate at the actual release dates.
Oh, sure. I
Um,
think that's absolutely true. Even though some of his movies don't really have great stories, like I'm always impressed by that. There are things that we'll get to them later. We haven't really gotten to. There's some great sort of creature effects and prosthetics, and there's one scene in particular of a guy that sort of explodes. That's
yeah,
a pretty amazing sequence. So it's not just the thing. This movie really delivers in the practical effects
yeah.
column as well. Yeah.
It sure does. I mean, a lot of the action sequences that he's choreographing and doing here, you can see inspiration from them in things as recent as like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like that's a bigger scale in a lot of cases, but like they're doing a lot of sword fighting in especially the big climactic bit at the end. They're doing a lot of sword fighting like what John Carpenter was doing here with
Yeah.
the performers flying around on wires and
Yeah.
being, spun around like by cranes. There's actually a line coming up where Jack Burton's gonna point out, like they're flying around like they're on wires out here, which is
Good
like
stuff.
there's a lot of that. There's also a scene later on where Egg tells him like, "Here, you want this gun? It'll make you feel like Dirty Harry," which is sort of like sort of an homage to the fact that Clint Eastwood was gonna be the guy at
Yeah.
first.
So anyway, you were describing the Storms characters.
Yeah, so the storms, thunder, rain, and lightning, they show up and they do their intro stunts, and they the yellow turbans, the good guys, they unload several clips or several magazines at them to no avail. Nothing works out for them, so the three of them do this really choreographed and like over the top sequence where they each pull out a knife and they're doing it in synchronized a synchronized knife throw with a front flip where they pull the knife out, they use magic to float it to the hand that's going to throw it, and then they all front flip at the same time and release the knives and kill and it's they kill three people,
Yeah, it's
which is
great. It's
yeah.
fun. Really quick, so Topaz Dude in the chat says, "Hello, all. I really like this movie. I wouldn't put it in the top tier of Carpenter, which for me is The Thing, Halloween, Escape from New York, and Princess of Darkness, which are all timers in my opinion." I disagree. I think this isn't. I think this is top tier Carpenter, because I controversially don't think Halloween's actually all that great. It's
Boy,
certainly
you heard it
really
for that one.
impressive, really impressive in terms of its vibes and filmmaking, if you will. I think the story of Halloween kind of sucks. Not gonna lie, that's my controversial John Carpenter take. So I think this movie is easily better than Halloween. I
I
understand the
I'm
sort of
inclined to
cultural,
agree with you.
the
I don't want to
cultural.
make them too angry, but I'm inclined to agree.
No, I think yeah, I think Halloween's pretty overrated. I understand its importance in the sort of history of horror filmmaking and John Carpenter's career, obviously. But other than some really cool vibes, I just don't think it's all that great. Yeah, there, I said it. I think I'd have to think about it more and rewatch some of his other movies, but I think this might be number 2 for me.
My three are gonna be The Thing, this, and Escape from New York because
Yeah.
Kurt Russell. Like, there's just something about Kurt Russell movies, man. Like, I could watch Kurt Russell all day, not get tired of it. There's no
Yeah.
low. There's no low. As a Stan
Yeah.
Smith of American Dad once put it about Kurt Russell's career.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's certainly a highlight of these movies. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't. I never really got the hype around Halloween personally. No, we don't need to spend too much time hating on Halloween. We can save that for another day. But yeah, back to Big Trouble.
There's a good amount of
Oh,
agreement with us in the chat too, though. Actually, that's nice to hear.
yeah, that is nice to hear because I do feel like that's not a
I
very
feel
common
I often
opinion.
feel in the minority when I talk about how much
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of Halloween's writing. So yeah,
yeah. There's a lot to dislike about it, but just quickly while we're on the subject, I hate how she throws the knife down twice after she after she got him, and then he didn't stay dead. She throws it down like a second time. Like really, you didn't learn after the first time. Anyway,
there's a few things like within the one
it's
of
kind
my
of like
favorite one of my favorite
classically
scenes.
stupid slasher
Yeah, one of my
protagonist.
favorite scenes to like kind of joke on is there's like right at the beginning where she gets home and she goes upstairs and she looks out the window. We see her from like the profile shot of her from the side looking out,
Yes, I know.
and she
Yep,
looks
yep.
down and Michael Myers is standing there next to the clothesline, and then we cut back to the profile shot. She doesn't turn around or anything.
Yep.
She
She doesn't
keeps
look away.
she doesn't
Yep.
look away. Her eye line does not leave where he is, and then we cut back to it and he's just gone, which is like
And then we cut back to her, and she's like, "Oh my god, where'd he go?" It's like, "Bitch, you were looking the whole time."
you were watching the whole time. You watched him run away. Like, he's not he didn't teleport. That wasn't a
Uh,
hallucination.
mm,
That, like, there wasn't even like a sheet that passed in front of him and then he
yeah,
disappeared or anything like that.
yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
that's one of
No, I
my
totally agree. I
yeah.
totally agree. Yeah. Also, I think Donald Angry has mentioned it. I think Topaz Dube mentioned that it was in the sort of next tier for him. I think The Fog is relatively underrated in his
I
career
would agree with that
overall.
one too. I like the
I
fog a
quite
lot.
like The Fog. The Fog is a fun vibe. I like all the characters around this little coastal town, and oh, there's a lady on the radio in that as well. She's quite great. As a sort of like a better sort of radio host than Jack Burton is in this movie.
Oh yeah, I do like that. I like that part
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
That anyway.
Back to this
Back
movie.
to
The
Big
Storms have
Trouble.
just executed 3 people and pulled out their weapons, and they're doing some crazy shit with that. One guy has like, he's got like half moon. Thunder has some half moon stuff, and then Lightning's making a couple of things that look sort of like wrenches wheel around in his hand. Um,
Mhm.
and Jack Burton says, "Enough of this," and drives his truck straight at them, and they all kind of get out of the way. Um, which is like they just like one of them jumps over it, the others just step to the side. Uh, and then he looks up because he's like, "What the hell?" And as he
What the
does,
hell?
and then he looks forward again, and he sees the main villain of the movie, our first introduction really to him,
Mhm.
Lopan, played
Yes,
by James Wang, another of my favorite character actors of all time.
legend,
One of the
absolute
best
legend.
voices in Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, he
Um,
mean he's just an absolute legend. I mean, yeah, he's been in so many things. We won't even bother trying to list them, but even
his
things.
career is crazy. I think he was doing something. Hold on, his like there's a crazy stat with his. Uh,
Well, he has 465 acting credits on IMDb,
He
so that's a lot.
yeah. R.I.P. He passed. Oh wait, no, that's a different guy.
No, he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, had me worried for a second, but I mean, in things as recent as Everything Everywhere All at Once, he was pretty great in that as the grandfather.
Yes, he was. I think there was something. What was the? Oh, was it James Hong? It's James Hong. I said Wong.
Ah, you
I
racist.
am. I should.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
this is exactly the sort of Orientalism that Roger Ebert was warning us about.
Yeah, there was
See?
some kind of like crazy stat that he was in like 30 or 40 movies a year for a really long time.
Oh,
Like,
that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
yeah,
considering he has 463 that are out already and then two upcoming. And he's what, like 96 years old, someone said in chat? And he got started. Let's see when he got started. Dude, and we're scrolling down and we're still
1954.
scrolling. Yeah, 53, 54. Yeah, so he's been a busy boy. You do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
And like I said, one of the best voices I think in all of acting. He has a character in Diablo 3, Gem Salesman, who like is one of the most like it's a very interesting cadence the way he speaks, and he's going to deploy that a lot in this movie
Oh,
to great
he's
comedic
so
effect.
funny in this movie. I love him in this movie. He's incredible because he could be rather generic. It would be so easy for him to be a generic villain, but the way he talks is hysterical. And some of the things he says. What's the line where he's like, "You weren't put on this earth to get it, Jack."
Yeah. Shut up, Mr. Burton. You were not put on this earth to get it. Like the way that he
Yes. He's so
my
funny because
favorite
he
my favorite lines.
really quick.
Yeah.
Ostensibly, he's like a very old and or ancient character who wants to like revive and like live forever and all that sort of stuff he wants to do. But the way he talks is like surprisingly modern. I think that's what makes it so funny. You know, it's like you were not put on this earth to get it.
So there
I
is
don't know.
I'm pretty sure Lo Pan is based on a traditional Chinese mythological figure. He
Okay.
was defeated by the first emperor of China and cursed to basically be a ghost, right? And so like that is an accurate sort of depiction of this ancient Chinese myth.
At least
Um,
on the surface, right?
but the way that yeah, at least on the surface, but the way that he talks, and especially in that one scene, one of my favorite lines is when he looks at the security cameras and sees the rest of the gang have showed up, and he just goes, "Oh, now this really pisses me off to no end." You know, like the way that he says it that way. See, this kind of shit really pisses me off to no end. It's like
Yeah.
that is so fucking funny.
It's hysterical.
He's so he's so good.
Yeah.
And when Jack initially like runs through him, he doesn't run over him. He runs through him because he doesn't have a physical body. He's like a ghost kind of.
Yeah. Or
He
whatever.
or whatever. He gets out of the truck, and some light comes out of his eyes and his mouth, and it blinds Jack. But Wang gets him away, gets him down an alley, splashes some water in his eyes, and
Wait,
he's
I'm
good to go.
sorry because I know we will have to breeze through some of these things, but there are just so many good lines
Yes, go
where
for
he's
it.
like
Yeah,
just where he says like I think it was Low Pan. He says who? He says don't look, Jack. He says I already did.
yeah.
Like who? I mean what? It's just so
When
good.
when it cuts to him, like as the truck is going for him, he's doing like one of those like beckoning fingers, like "come here" with a like a
Yeah,
like, which is
like bring
just
it on.
really
Yeah.
hamming it up. You know, I think it
Yes.
was Lo Pan who he gets out,
Yeah.
sees him just like walking around, and then the light comes out and blinds him. Uh,
Oh, really quick, Eric in the chat says, which is a great representation of this kind of character. He isn't transported from the past. He's long lived and just as much from contemporary time. Yes.
yeah,
So, like, he's been around this whole time. So he has sort of adapted, you know, to modern speech and things of that modern culture to a degree. You know, he isn't just transported like off of a time machine. And so his sort of sassy and very modern use of slang and things like that. Oh, this really pisses me off. Like,
this really
it's so
pisses me
great.
off to no end.
No end.
So yeah, Georgia says like it makes sense. He's 2,500 years old, but a 2,500-year-old sorcerer, but he learned English in 1980 San Francisco.
Yeah. That's
But
really
yeah,
pisses me
absolutely,
off. Yeah.
it's
It's
great.
like so like yeah, and that's what's so impressive about this movie to me because like it is like a fish out of water guy who thinks he's more of a hero than he really is, like dropped into this campy, schlocky, like Chinese action B movie fantasy, but all those aspects like are still given thought. You know what I mean? All like all those like all the lore and stuff like that. Like where because Dr. Diddler mentioned it feels like it's written by someone who hates screenwriting
Yeah.
in a way that he just like the movie sort of like is sort of poking fun at all these sort of like all this need for exposition and lore dumps, but still a lot of thought is given to all those components. Like the characters are still pretty well realized, even if they're over the top and they're sort of hamming it up and they have funny names like Gracie Law, the lawyer, and things like that. Like they still all the character motivations and behaviors and the sort of lore, like if you do think about it, it still makes sense because I think because it was written as a serious thing, or not like drop dead serious, but like it wasn't supposed to be ironic at first. It was just a script they wrote with an actual hero in this fantasy Chinese world, and then they made it into a joke later. And
Yeah.
so I feel like you can feel that running through the movie, where like all the work has done to make it like actually good, and then we twist it into a joke, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's pretty spot on. And the action scene really hasn't taken a break. Like right from
No,
the
it's been
minute that we
going.
got
Yes.
from the airport, it's been going. This is like a roller coaster. So we go from the airport. The girl is kidnapped. They give chase. They almost run over Egg Shen in the alley. Then they get to
Hmm.
the alley. There's a big fight scene, and then the huge villains of the movie, Lopan and the Storms, they arrive, and Jack almost runs over, or tries to run over him, but he gets blinded. They turn down an alley. He gets his sight back from splashing some water in his eyes, and the Lords of Death are there, and they know Wang Chi's name, and they've got to run for it again around another corner, through past the big fight that's still going on between the Storms and the other martial artists, and then through a window into a hidey hole, basically. And this is where we start to get a little bit more like exposition stuff, but again in a rushed sense. So Jack's not only not understanding and not quite grasping it, but they keep getting interrupted by other aspects of the action movie and having to pivot and go and be like, no time, later.
Which,
Which is a really fun way of
yeah,
introducing us into the way the world works, as the audience, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so in this scene they get in, uh somebody surprises one of the hiding members of the good guy faction, is there, and Wang Chi says the Lords of Death are just errand boys for for the Wing Kong. They're controlled by the Wing Kong. They're just errand boys for the Wing Kong. And he goes, "Great. Who wiped out all those yellow turbans up there, huh?" I mean, those guys were winning. And then there's they speak in Chinese. They don't tell him anything. He says he says it was the storms, the three storms. He goes, three guys did all that? It's like, well, yeah, you watched it. What about whatever it was I ran straight through? And then the light comes on and they have to get out. It's like fast and they have to run again through
Yeah, they have to
another,
like duck into the sewers or something like, or like these little,
like these little
you know,
rat holes, basically. Yeah,
yeah.
like to get out of the building. And he loses his sweater and ends up in his iconic tank top with Lopan on it, by the way, which is really funny.
Wait, wait, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Hold on. Oh, that's so funny. I didn't think about that even once.
Yeah, his tank top has Lopan on it the whole time.
Wait, why does he have that shirt?
uh,
Why? He just picked it up in Chinatown one day.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure. That's so funny. That's so funny. I did not notice that at all. That's a great joke.
yeah, pretty good. And that's they get out of there, right? So then this is the next scene where he's in the restaurant and he's
Yeah.
talking with the insurance company, and he's doing like it's got to be a listing, honey. I pay him 6 G's a year in premiums, and then they're all like they're trying to exposit to him, like, oh,
But they're doing
China's here. They've been fighting for centuries. This is like a mystic war that's been going on forever. He's like, what does that mean, huh? I mean, I don't even know what the hell that means. Uh, all I know is that this Lo Pan character comes out of the middle of nowhere in the middle of a goddamn alley while his buddies are flying around on wires, cutting everybody to shreds, and he just stands there waiting for me to drive my truck straight through him with a light coming out of his mouth. Hello, and he goes back to talking to the insurance agent on the phone.
and then they're expositing and they're answering his questions ostensibly, and he's just not
not
listening
paying
or
attention.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny.
And then they have a side conversation because they're like, "Oh my god, this is a big deal. When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me?" He goes, "Yeah, tall guy, weird clothes. First you see him, then you don't." And then he's like, "Is this? I mean, is this just a switchboard, or is there an agent I can talk to?" So he's like, he's doing that, like he's just getting irritated with the person on the other end of the insurance call.
Well, I don't know my policy number. It's in the glove compartment.
Can you just look up Burton, please? Burton.
It's so funny.
It's great. There's more people coming in. Eddie gets introduced, and this is where we sort of get this is Jack Burton. He goes, "Oh boy, the guy you always told me about, huh?" Don't know exactly what. He goes, that was your abandoned truck. He goes, "Abandoned like hell," and then the insurance agent hangs up on him. Hello. And this is where we find out the Lords of Death stole his truck after he ran away.
He says, "We'll find it for you." He says, "Damn right you will. And my money. My time is money."
And time is money to a guy like me. And your phone is dead, by the way. How do you think I feel, Jack? I lost a whole girl, which is also a really funny line. This movie is just like constantly hitting you with bangers. Absolutely. So find out the Lords of Death were just on a joyride, and then Gracie Law comes in, dressed in a shrouded over, hunched over, like Billy Crystal in The Princess Bride, covered up with a cloak, and then she flips it off and stands up straight and goes, "Don't panic, it's only me, Gracie Law," and adjusts her hair and everything. And he walks up to her and just goes, "Just happened to be in the neighborhood on a dark and stormy night." And sips his tea. He's just convinced she's there for him.
Yes. And she's like, "This is my neighborhood."
It's fucking great, man.
Yeah.
And...
Don't panic, it's only me, Gracie Law.
She goes, "I'm always poking my nose in where it doesn't belong," which I admit it. This mix-up is my fault, sort of. Yeah, basically just talking about the character flaws on the screen. And then we get some more exposition that the White Tigers, a essential human trafficking group, have kidnapped Miao Yang, because they just were looking for a girl to sell real quick. Maybe if we get there fast tonight, we can buy her back. A search warrant's too complicated. Violence is out of the question. And he comes in, he's like, "Hold it, slow down here. I'm feeling a little like an outsider." It's they've kind of just given you the whole structure for the next act of the movie, and he's just hold on,
Wait
phone
a minute.
now. Which is great. "I need all my cash for Miao Yang. She's got green eyes." She's like, "Oh no, seriously? That's extra to these people. It's like leather bucket seats. It's double the price."
So these lines are said so earnestly too, like they're not jokes. It's great. Oh, it's so great.
It's extra to these people. What people? They just said it.
He's not listening.
Not listening at all. He's wearing a blue kimono. And then it's
and
like,
and
Lopan, the guy I ran over. It's like, yeah, he has spirit powers. His flesh and bones are atomized. He becomes a dream. What? He just what?
it's incredible. I love that dynamic so much where they're just saying all this exposition to him about this guy who has spirit powers, and all he has to say is what. That's all I did. He's not really interested in any of the answers to his questions. He's just confused and doesn't like it.
Doesn't like it. And
Yeah.
like the scene, I just noticed this is kind of fun too. The scene ends with him like, please, like help. It doesn't matter. That's an exaggeration. Just help me. I've got a great idea. And the scene ends with a circle wipe out into the next scene,
Yes.
which is a great touch. I mean,
Yes.
we should bring that back. It's like
Always.
we
We
absolutely
should.
should bring that back.
You know, it's
They're
kind
so
of
much
funny.
fun.
The only thing that does those kind of fun wipes anymore is Star Wars, and they don't even do them anymore because they're fun. They do them because they feel like they have to
Yeah,
because Star Wars
because
has
Star
them.
Wars does wipes. That's
Yeah.
just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, they did sort of want this. I'm pretty sure the studio kind of wanted this to be sort of like the next Star Wars. They wanted to
Yeah,
set
they
this
wanted
up.
it to be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, they
It's a bit
wanted to
more
set it up.
ironic than Star Wars.
Yeah, well,
Which
yeah,
I'm
and
sure
like,
is what they
but the
didn't like
studio
about it.
didn't quite get it, right? Like, they didn't understand the irony of it. So they were like, wait a minute, wait a second. What? They were a little bit like Jack Burton. It's kind of funny that they didn't understand. They're just sitting there like, what? What's going on? Oh man.
And
Okay.
then, they're discussing their plan, and there's a great little bit of dialogue here where he says, like, it's all up to you now, Jack. My destiny rests in your capable hands. And he says, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
He just because that's what he thinks
Hey,
a
I'll
Han
do my
Solo
best.
or a
The
I've
thing
already
is to
forgotten what his
like, I'll
John means.
try. The thing is to look stupid. He does. And he comes in wearing a costume that looks like one of his ones like back from his like Disney Channel days or his Disney movie days. Comes in
Yeah.
this like goofy, dorky little suit. Like, boy, it sure is raining cats and dogs. Cab driver said he told me that I could, well, that the white tiger would, and he just kind of raises his eyebrows, and she's just like, "Oh,
Yeah,
just
so
a minute." So he's
he's
infiltrating.
pretending to be a John at this like prostitution den, sex trafficking ring,
To try to
pretending to be
find Miao Yen, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then I like they're driving around or they're waiting. There's another car that pulls up, and Gracie Law. This is another thing that I really like about this character. And Kim Cattrall, by the way, somebody mentioned it earlier. Kim Cattrall is smoking hot in this movie, and she is so funny. Like, the studio originally did not want her to be in this role. They weren't away like because they thought she was too goofy, right? They didn't think
Yeah.
that it was going to work. Um, I don't think anybody else could have done this quite as well as she does. I mean, like, you look at that video of her. Have you ever seen the video of her with her husband? Where he's like he
I don't
plays
think
the
so.
upright bass while she scats like free verse poetry, free verse slam poetry,
No,
and
I
she
have
takes
not.
it like she's taking it very seriously. Like,
You know what's kind of fun about her character in this movie is that she's also a bit of an outsider like Jack Burton, but she thinks she knows what's happening. Like she thinks she's one with this culture and knows what's happening here. But she does have
yeah,
some of the same energy. Like, don't panic. It's only me, Gracie Law.
like she comes into it like all of the white characters kind of have main character
Character
syndrome.
syndrome. Yes. Yes.
And
Very
none of
funny.
and none of them are as capable as they think they are, right? So like
He-
in this scene, she has this delivery where she says, "Hold on, guys, I'll be right back. I think I recognize that car." And they both just sort of like watch her leave, and just kind of go like, "Ah, like okay, what's she doing now?" Like,
Mhm.
strange girl. Yeah, they're like it's like they're just like, okay. Sure, like we forgot you were here almost, you know. Like,
Yeah.
it's really funny. And the person in the car that she's going to meet is a reporter, Margot,
Oh,
Um,
she's so funny
and
too.
her opening line, Gracie points at the building and goes, "That one right there, the white tiger." And she says, "God, it's creepy. Do we actually have to go in? Because I will if we have to. I'll go anywhere or do anything to get my story. It's my big break." Just instantly hits you with the exposition of who she is and why she's here in one of the clunkiest possible ways. He goes, "Just
Yeah.
sit tight. We've got one of our best men inside right now stirring the pot." And
He says,
he's
"How do you do, ma'am? Henry Swanson's my name and excitement's my game."
it's so goofy.
She says, "Cash or charge?" It says, "Gosh, cash, I guess. I mean,
Not
it's not
deductible, is it?
deductible, is it?" Yeah.
And then he realizes she's starting to walk away. And he
Mm.
goes, I really wish these pictures you had were in color because I'm in the mood for a girl with green eyes. Fresh off the boat is how I like them. The more exotic, the better. And the one woman is like, Chinese girls do not come with green eyes, like, just, yeah. But this clues the other madam in that something is amiss. And so she goes to the secret hidey hole in the building and goes and checks up on Miao Lin as she's tied up on the bed, very
Yeah.
Taken-esque kind of thing.
Sure.
He ends up getting into a room with this girl from Hong Kong, and he's trying to do some investigating, but it's not like where he's like, so how does this work? Old girls leave, new girls come in, or where are you from originally? How long have you been in the U.S. of A? And he has this. She says, "Take your tie off, please." He goes, "Yeah, I know what you mean. My wife gave it to me for Christmas." And then the whole building starts shaking.
It's like I says to my ex-wife, he's just got that sort of energy throughout. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Do they bring in a girl? Is she wearing contacts?
What?
I don't think it doesn't look like the girl in the that he gets brought to him is wearing green contacts. Her eyes look pretty dark.
I don't remember that. Did I
Yeah.
say that or did
No,
someone in
no,
the chat?
somebody in the chat did.
Oh, okay.
They bring him a girl. Oh, the joke. They could have brought him a girl wearing contacts. That would have been. That
Yeah.
actually would have been kind of funny. But then the
Yeah.
building starts shaking and it starts raining. There's green flame on top of it, and oh no, the storms are here. And everybody's panicking. More chaos ensues. So we haven't had. He gets pushed along the hallway, by the mob of people trying to escape, and the roof gets ripped off.
Mhm.
Great effects. Cool scene.
Yes.
The roof's
They
getting
come
ripped off.
down, they steal the girl, and they
Yeah.
leave, essentially.
Well, two of them guard the hallway while the lightning guy goes in to steal the girl, and he just walks right up to one of them, lifts up the hat and punches him in the face a couple times. It does nothing, so he gives him a little nod and then gets kicked backwards and onto his ass.
Yeah.
So again, brave, maybe not capable.
Dr. Diddler points out that we missed a joke with one of the madams, a Chinese woman. Her name is Mrs. O'Toole. It's a nice little joke.
That is a pretty good joke. They steal the girl, and they get away, and so then they leave and they go to Grace's place. And his line when he gets in the door is just, "That was not real. I want to talk to the cops."
Green explosions, people flying in and out.
That was
That
not
was
real.
not
I want to
real.
talk to the cops. I want my truck back. Now where the hell am I? And they put him in a chair and it kicks back. She goes, "My office. Sit down." He goes, "What? You sleep in your office?" Oh
Oh
my
man.
god.
There's so many great lines in this movie. It's like uncountable. Like every single thing he says is funny.
Yeah. So then the reporter asks, what were those storms? What are they, magicians? And somebody goes, it's hard to explain. Sort of, but it's hard to explain. He says, "Try real hard." She gives him a glass of milk. Here, drink this. So then they have some more exposition. Lo Pan, the godfather of Little China. You mean Lo Pan, the chair? That's the chairman of the National Orient Bank. and owns the Wing Kong Import-Export Trading Company, but who's so reclusive that no one's even laid eyes on this guy in years. And Jack just goes, "Who the hell are you anyway?"
So, uh,
He's
I
just like
love it.
actively resisting being exposited to in this movie. This is
Well,
he's
well, it's
Doomer
not just
going through cutscenes in a video game.
yeah. It's not just that. It's not just that he's refusing to actually listen to what's being said to him. It's like he's hearing how exposition dumpy all this dialogue is, and he's confused by it. Like he's just like, "What the hell kind of movie am I in?" Is essentially his attitude, because the way she says that is so like NPC coded. You know,
Yeah.
like you mean like Mr. David Lopan? You mean the Lopan that's chairman of the National Orient Bank and owns the Wing
Wing
Kong
Kong
Trading Company?
Import Export Trading Company,
Trading
which Import Export Trading Company, that's how trade works. Is
Yes, but who's so reclusive that no one has laid eyes on him in years. And and I love the way they speed through the exposition when they're reading these. Like he just hears all that, doesn't actually retain any of it, but is so just like taken aback by the way she's talking that he just goes, "Who the hell are you
who the
anyway?"
hell are you anyway?
It's like how you might actually react if people actually talked like NPCs to you. You would just like not actually like take in what they're saying and just be like, "Wait, who are you that you talk like that?" I'm Margot Litzenberger. It's another great name. I'm with I'm with the Berkeley People's Herald. I've been trying to get someone from the press to listen to me about this, Burton. It's like that's her character. She's trying to get her big break with the big story. She's gonna bust this story wide open. Yeah,
and then Tara comes out and she and like adds to the chaos. It's like every scene that they can, even the calmer ones, they add chaos to it at every
yes,
turn. So
yes.
it really keeps a strong pace the whole time, which is
Oh,
very,
absolutely.
very good
It's
writing.
a breezy movie. It just flies along, and that kind of contributes to the feeling of like being overwhelmed by everything they're throwing at you, which is definitely what they want you to feel because they want you to feel kind of how Jack feels. Like they rush through these lines of exposition, so there's no real chance to like absorb any of them. They fly by, and every chance they get, they add this new chaotic detail or a new person entering the conversation talking over somebody else. So it flies by. I really like Lancelot Metal Lance. I don't know how to read your name. He says the exposition turns into Charlie Brown adult noises in Jack's head, and that's exactly it. Like he hears them talking, understands that they're expositing at him, but it does not retain anything they say. It's great. It's
He's
a
no,
wop wop wop.
yeah.
It's great.
And then like Margot at one point, like when she finds out that Tara is like, was intended to become a sex slave, basically. Just like, wow, I
Mhm.
had no idea any of this was going on. I must be monumentally naive. And Jimmy just goes, "You are." And so they have to go back and get the fiance. And this is the part like somebody had mentioned, like he's been playing video games for 30 years. Jack gets up after this and goes, listen, I'm a reasonable guy, but I've just experienced some very unreasonable things," which is kind of his like, "Listen, I've been playing video games for 30 years." Like, what are you That's his version of that, right? "I've just
Yeah.
experienced some very unreasonable things. It depends on how you look at it." The hell it does. "So somebody, I don't care who, tell me what's going on. The truth, I can take it. We don't know." Then the thunder goes. Like, "I'm going now, alone if I have to." Um, and then
The Wing Kong Exchange, the most dangerous den of madmen in Chinatown. You can't waltz in like the wind. It's like, yes, I can, Miss Law. And my mind and spirits are as one.
"My mind and spirit are as one." And he's like, "As two, I said I was coming."
Yeah.
And
Okay, I love that because it's so funny. So, like it's funny because it's all kind of a farce, but they've actually taken great pains to like have it, have setups and payoffs that really matter. Like, because he feels like he's spiritually out of whack, that his mind and his spirit are separated, and that's why the trick didn't work. but now he has purpose and he's going to go rescue the maiden and all that sort of stuff. He says, "My mind and my spirits are as one." And then Jack, wanting to have something clever to say, says, "As two, I said I was coming." But like that doesn't make sense, Jack. Like, my mind and my spirits are as one. He says, "As two," and it's like, no, that would be. Never mind.
Yeah,
Never
whatever.
mind.
Never mind. And Gracie's like, "I'd go with you, buddy, because I know there's a problem with your face," which is it's like a really like backhanded thing to say. But he's like, "All right, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn," he winks at her. He goes, "Call the president." Like, and then he walks away like with this crazy swagger, like totally
Yeah.
unearned. It's so fucking funny, man. He's so good.
He just thought that was the best line ever. It's like he thinks he's in an action movie, essentially.
Yeah.
And he's trying his best to act like he's the hero in an action movie. If we're not back by dawn, call the president.
The president. And then they get there, right? And he tells Wang, he's like, "This is gonna take crackerjack timing, total concentration. Are you ready?" And he's like, "I was born ready." So they get moving in. And what's their plan, Jamie?
Their plan is to pretend to be like utility workers coming to fix the phones or something like that.
Just looking for the main, yeah, with he's got a phone in his hand, just like like one of the like an old fashioned telephone in his hand.
Yes.
And the
He
plan
says, "Don't get up."
Yeah, don't get up. All right, boys, where's the main panel? Probably through here, huh? And they just walk right in.
Yes.
While Wang speaks Cantonese at them so that they're so distracted that they're not going to think about it twice.
Yeah, exactly. And they just come and they act like they belong there. They just come storming in.
Crackerjack timing. Total concentration.
But the very first thing he says is, "I love working nights."
I love working nights. Where's the main panel? Probably over here, huh? It's like I love like Jack Burton is the true blue collar hero that we deserve. You know?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
This would be my plan if I had to get in somewhere. Is just be like,
yeah,
I'm here to fix the panel. I'm here to fix the panel. Where is it? Back that way? Yeah. Don't get up. Don't worry. I can figure it out.
Probably through here. And what's so funny about his opening line being, "I love working nights," it's just like he thinks, "Oh man, they're gonna think it's weird that we're coming here at night. I better say right off the bat that I just love working nights, like it's a totally normal thing." "Oh, I love working nights. Don't get up. Phone company. All right, boys, where's the main panel? Probably through here." And then he gets through and it's like, "Good work, Jack." He's like, "I think they actually fell for it."
I think they actually fell for it. They go dead silent until they see a camera, and he's like, "Good work. I think they actually fell for it." Yeah. And then they see a camera. And so he goes, "Well, the last time we had this problem was on account of squirrels chewing through the wires. You remember that? I'd better locate that central junction box. I think it's right down there." Which then, so there's some Chinese letters on the door, and Jack asks, "What's that say?" This is another great part, and he speaks in Chinese. He says, "Hell of boiling oil," which we forgot to mention. The Chinese have a lot of hells. They've mentioned that earlier in one of the scenes. They're like, the hell where people are skinned alive. What? Chinese people have a lot of hells. So, he asks him what the door says, and he says, "It's hell of boiling oil." He goes, "You're kidding." He's like, "Yeah, I am." It says, "Keep out."
Which is a great joke. It's one of the few that they like actually let the side characters have, But that is a pretty funny joke. A lot of the times, like, the other characters, like, they're all the straight man playing everything very earnestly so that Jack Burton can be the one who says the goofy funny thing. But that's actually like a fun little moment where he gets to have a joke, which is great.
Yeah, it is a pretty fun sequence there. But yeah, crackerjack timing that requires total concentration to just walk right in like you own the place. Which, pretty much perfect. Did this movie inspire Larry the Cable Guy? Larry the Cable Guy probably could have been in a Big Trouble in Little China adjacent type movie. He didn't have a super long career, but it could have worked out, you know. Uh, I don't remember uh, ever watching that movie, but yeah, this is the funniest fucking thing in the movie. It's a really good cut, really good cut. So they get in. I think this is the part where they get in and they find the elevator, and Jack is like, "Don't tell me it's an elevator that only goes down." Um, just, he's just so done with everything essentially from this point on, which is pretty fun. Uh, I'm scrolling through as this is going, and I'm waiting on the Amazon Prime ads to because it always cuts at that point where he says, "Yeah, I am." It says, "Keep out." Um, we got a lot of Listerine ads if anybody wants to hear about that. Pretty good stuff. Jamie picked the perfect time to abandon ship. Go do whatever he's doing. Want to be sure I'm accurate in the breakdown. But other things that other things that this movie does very well in the comedy aspects. Just the editing jokes are really good. Taking its time. Anybody have a Ninja Frostvault? Yeah, so we're gonna get into the what mouthwash does everybody use? Let's get into that while it finishes up this 5 minutes of ads for the service that I pay for every month. Not a huge pain in the ass at all. Baking soda is one. My grandmother used to use that. I think that melts your teeth, though. Oh no, peroxide. That's the shit that melts your teeth. Don't do that. That's a bad look. Ninja Frostvolt. It's like a cooler that has extra. All right, we're back. We're back in. I jumped ahead a little too far because they get into the. See, this is why I got to keep it in track. They get into the keep out the hell of the boiling oil. But Egg is now back in the movie and he's having beers with Wang's uncle or father, whoever helps him in the restaurant. And they're reading the signs, this is also a lot of fun. Egg's sort of the local authority on Lo Pan, and he's giving. We have to gather our strength because now there's clouds and thunder. They've got a geomancy thing laid out on the table. Is the image of difficulty at the beginning, but finally we shall bring order out of chaos, which is a fun little introduction to where we're going moving forward.
He channeled the spirit of Jordan Peterson when he said that.
He did. He sure did. Jordan Peterson descended from on high to give Egg Shen the dialogue line. They're going to bring order out of chaos. Doesn't say how. Grace is asking these questions. He just goes, yeah, we'll do it. Don't worry. And they find. So we're back with Jack and Wang. They find the place where Yin has been dragged into, and they find an elevator that. They find the elevator. This isn't the one where he says the elevator that only goes down. He's like, "What is this, Chinese or something? Counting backwards?" And he goes, "No, not backwards, downwards." So it's an elevator that only. This is the first elevator that only goes down. And then
gotta descend into hell to rescue the princess, Hugh.
Yeah, and it starts to fill with water pretty soon. And then this is another one of my favorite lines from Egg Shen. Is like, of course the Chinese get things mixed up. Look at what they have to work with, huh? There's Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoist alchemy and sorcery. We take what we want and leave the rest, like your salad bar. Which there's one thing even David Lo Pan must acknowledge. All movement in the universe is caused by tension. then the people turn into when the Furies are out of whack, the people turn into demons and live forever. So they're giving us more exposition in this scene.
Yeah.
With Grace, they're not giving us Jack to be confused by it, but it's kind of just like coming right out of there. Jack and Wang are
Well, it's
getting
interesting because
flooded out of the elevator.
this exposition is a bit more important, actually. So they're not giving us Jack to be confused by it, but this is sort of like explaining what Lopan wants and what he's trying to do a bit more concretely.
Yeah, a little bit.
That
Yeah,
like
he's going to explain it more himself a little
sure,
later on. This is just sort of like giving us this is really kind of giving us our introduction to Egg as a character who's going to play a bigger role later on. Yeah, like as
yeah,
the opposing sorcerer to David Lopan.
yeah.
Yeah. So they the elevator starts filling with water. Jack says, "What the hell?"
What
And
the hell?
what the hell? And Wang goes, "You think they'd just let us walk in and out like the wind?" And he goes, "Yes, wasn't I thought that was your whole damn point." That's exactly what he said. He's like, "My point was to find Mao Yin at any cost." And he says, "This is a funny one." He goes, "This is salt water, Wang," which is, like, I'm not really sure what the significance of this being salt water
No,
is.
I don't. From Jack's perspective, I have no idea
Yeah,
why
like
it's
it's gonna drown
significant,
you
but
just the same as the other stuff.
yeah.
Um,
But thinking about, so obviously we've said it multiple times now, this is a very sort of campy, over the top movie. But the fact that it's salt water and that it's like the ocean and then they're sort of descending into the ocean and they're descending into hell and all that sort of stuff, it's all like pretty symbolically coherent.
yeah,
You know what I
very
mean? Like, in a way
symbolically
that's,
coherent. I mean,
yeah,
yeah. I like the
as,
the lots
go
of
ahead.
hells.
Yes.
They find out when they swim out of the elevator that they're in the hell of the upside down sinners, right?
Yes.
Where like which is it's an interest like that's just a really interesting little bit of lore to drop right there. There's
Hmm.
like bodies with flesh falling, and they look really good. The effects on like these
Oh
aren't just
yeah.
like
It's
random
genuinely pretty
plastic skeletons.
creepy.
These are genuinely like actually horrifying.
Yeah.
Um, and they get pulled out by the thunders. They're being tortured, right? But yeah, like they're in the hell. They're under the ocean in the salt water, right? They had to descend down to rescue the princess from the demon king, basically, which is
Yeah.
where like this is where we're starting to introduce a lot more of the symbolic elements. Um,
Yes.
so that's sort of Egg's purpose in that last scene is like, and he's
Hmm.
got the geomancy stuff, right? He's like, we have to wait till the right time. Right now there are clouds and thunder. We have to like align ourselves with the elements and with nature in order to bring order out of chaos. Like we
Yeah.
can't move yet. We have to wait and gather our strength. Which is another I really like that element of this as well. Like it's a way of incorporating that Chinese mysticism that they want to use without it feeling like too orientalist, I guess, like without it feeling like too much like navel gazing exoticism,
Well,
right?
it's not like, okay, so there's the fact that all of it feels very exotic and strange to Jack and to the audience because we're not familiar with any of it, and we're just being spewed a whole bunch of lore and exposition at a breakneck pace. However, setting aside actual like cultural historicity and accuracy, symbolically, it's all actually pretty coherent. If you do take the time to think about all the things they're saying, it's not a bunch of gobbledygook. Like there's a logic to it, especially
Yeah.
symbolically, and it's actually pretty straightforward. It's what you might expect of a lot of hero stories, but it's just it has all these, foreign and strange and exotic sort
Well,
of
I mean,
trappings
it
to
has
it.
the same sort of so the I Ching, or the I Ching, the like mystic book of China, right? Like the
Mhm.
book of magic, of changes, I think is the actual like translation, the book of changes.
That's interesting.
That's sort of the found Taoism and Confucianism are sort of in conversation with that all the time in the way that they sort of look at the world to those two traditions. And
Mhm.
this feels very much like something that would come out of this. So like I've done a few of these before because I think it's kind of interesting. The way that you read this book essentially is you take three coins with a heads and a tails, as long as they're not the same on either side. And you kind of like, the idea is that you come to it with a question of like, what do I need to do to, solve this problem, right, that I'm having in my life? What do I need to do? How do I need to move forward to do this? And you shake them up and kind of throw them, and depending on what they land on, there are there are a bunch of different combinations. It's not just four, nine, I think, that you can get. And there are lines corresponding to the way that works, and those lines correspond to things like lake, mountain, thunder, cloud, all these kinds of things. And depending on, you do this 6 times, and you get a set of pictograms that directs you to where in the book you are to turn for your advice. And the advice is sort of like maybe like a vague horoscope kind of thing, but it's essentially a book of wisdom that gives you, like, you're directed to that, and you are meant to read that sort of poetic vagary and kind of take from it what you will in the terms of your question that you posed, right? And he does that in this, what I would say is a pretty accurate way of consulting that form of magic, right? Like that's the kind of like oracle and magic that like the ancient Chinese, Greeks, ancient peoples believed in. And he consults it in a way that I feel like is pretty accurate, and quick, accurate to that process, right? So I think that like there is that, but when you do it, it does tend to make sense because you're reading into it what you want to read out. You read into it, you get whatever you bring.
You have a book of different pieces of wisdom, and then you sort of use chance and your own intention and what you're looking for, and then you're given a piece of wisdom, and then you sort of make that fit, and you draw from that how it's relevant to the question you asked.
And oiled and I understand why Jack tunes out. Yeah,
That's the thing.
Exactly.
Exactly, and it's not really a reflection of how accurate or how symbolically coherent what's being said is. It's just that it's all so strange to Jack and the audience that you just kind of, or you don't really absorb any of it. It just kind of flies over your head, you know what I mean? But if you do look at a lot of what's happening here symbolically, like it fits together, it works. Yeah. It's just the movie moves at such a breakneck pace that it doesn't really let you like absorb a lot of it, and it gives you a character who's just constantly not really listening. He's just kind of tuning out. He's just trying to get the basic amount of information so he can get his truck back.
He wants his truck back, and he wants his money, and he's gonna help his friend get his girl back along the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the basic idea that, like, that he's trying to save the day and get what he wants, and he needs to be aligned in terms of mind and spirit and aligned with the natural world. Like, that's all pretty simple stuff, straightforward stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they get caught by the storm, and they're being tortured. Jack he's like, why don't you come over here and fight like a man? And he blows a lacrosse ball or something at his gut, like, which is also kind of funny. That's like, it's interesting because like you might expect that little weapon might come back later. It's not gonna. Neither are the other ones from the beginning. They're not really gonna play a part. Doesn't really affect any of it. But this is where they get taken on their blindfolded wheelchairs up to the like the hall of David, of Buddhas, where David Lopan is hanging out.
Yes.
And the set designer,
incredible,
absolutely crushed it. Had to keep being asked to leave, or had to be asked to leave while they were filming on this set, because every time James Hong would say the line, "Shut up, Mr. Burton," he would start cracking up, like, and
That's
ruin the
funny.
take.
That's pretty good. Oh yeah, but let's talk about some of this dialogue because there's some really great moments here as well. When they're like, "Okay, so where are we, Wang?" He says, "You are nowhere." He's like, "Oh boy." Like, look, we came here to see David Lopan, all right? Like, David Lopan is like, then you have succeeded, Mr. Burton. Like, what? You? He's like, I don't get this at all. I thought, and he goes, shut up, Mr. Burton. You are not put on this world to get it.
Come on, Lopan is like nothing you can understand. There are many mysteries, many unanswerable questions, even in a life as short as yours. Yeah, well, the way I see it, it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask. Like, where's my truck?
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good line. Like, unironically, that's just such a great line. It says so much about his character. And he's like, there are many mysteries and unanswerable questions, even in a life as short as yours. He's like, yeah, well, it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask. Like, that's great. That's a great line. It's like, does the way I see it, it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask. Like, where's my truck? You are not looking for a truck. You're looking for a girl with green eyes. She must be something extraordinary, or I'm not about to waste another 2,000 years. It's like, there can't be many Chinese girls with green eyes these days. He says, there are not, never were. He says, so beggars can't be choosers. uh,
Is like,
uh,
what province is she from? Hunan? Her father must have been her mother, her father? He must be a holy man. I must know. Like, you got a tongue, Dave. Ask her yourself.
oh, it's so good.
Yeah, like if you have an influence over your youthful friend, you better exert it now. Otherwise, I will have both of you off to the hell where people are skinned alive. It's that simple. You understand?
Are you
Are
crazy?
you
Is that
crazy?
your
Like,
problem?
are you crazy? Is that your problem? I guess it's like
He just like after everything he's seen, Jack just like refuses to like come to terms with the fact that this guy is like a centuries old wizard demon ghost character who is actually going to try to like
take
do
over
this
the
to like
world or whatever. He
yeah
says like
and
you can go off and rule the universe from beyond the grave, then, huh? And is just like indeed. It's like or check into a psycho ward, whichever comes first, huh?
it's just it's so funny that after everything he's seen he's just like yeah look get a load of this guy
Two
pretty
thousand
loopy.
years and you can't find one broad to fit the bill? Come on, Dave. You must be doing something seriously wrong.
Like he just has such insane overconfidence, but just like a total unwillingness to like appreciate the full reality of what's happening here. He's just like, oh, and then even Wang's trying to be like, no, he means it, Jack. like, like Jack,
Who
you
are
know, you
these?
don't understand.
Now this really pisses me off to no end. Who are these friends of yours? This
So then
really
we,
pisses me off to no end.
so a bit more exposition. This is where Lopan, you know, tells us what his plan is. He says, "My problem is this place. This place is my tomb. I'm buried here. A young man, a king, a warrior is entombed in this old man's crippled body. And all I need is a woman, Mr. Burton, a special kind of woman with dragon green eyes, to make me whole and young again, so that I may rule the universe from beyond the grave." Yep.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. So there's the revelation of the plot. He needs the girl with green eyes to become Sauron. This is his one ring. this is this is his big one. So he's like, but he gets ready to leave, or he starts. He starts leaving because he's pissed off to no end by the friends arriving at the front, and it just like, where's Mao Yang in this building? Safe. Where is she? Safe. Safer with me than any creature on Earth. And then he's gone. And then we get to the scene at the desk where Grace is expositing to the security guard, like, you better let us in here. This woman has a deadline, and her pen, my friend, is mightier than your sword. She's rummaging through her purse, trying to find a pen the whole time. looking confused and lost. And it is very underrated comedy beat, right? Okay, give him a tour. Yeah, come on, give him a tour. What's it gonna hurt? Thunder comes out to give them the tour. Um, and smoking his cigar and everything. They so like these little beats of the incompetence of the main characters, the ones that like people might think are the main characters. They are in almost every scene. They are the bumbling ones. They are the like it's and it just sells the. I really don't understand. And when Jamie gets back, okay, there he is. He can.
And I'm back.
I do not understand how people did not get the joke of this movie. Like I was just saying, like the scene where she's saying, like her pen is mightier than your sword, but she's rummaging through her purse because she can't find a pen the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like I really don't understand how they didn't get the joke of this movie.
I don't understand it either because it seems fairly obvious. Though if I'm going to throw them a bone, I've definitely had the experience in my life where I did not get what was supposed to be funny about something, and then something just clicked, and then once I got it, I just couldn't understand how I didn't get it before. My go-to example with this is when I was young, I didn't quite understand why Arrested Development was funny. Like I was in it's like my freshman year of college, and some friends were watching it, and I just did not get what was supposed to be funny about it. It wasn't clicking for me for some reason. I don't know why. It wasn't clicking. And then I smoked some weed, and then they had it on again, and I was watching it, and then everything clicked into place, and I was like, oh, this is fucking hysterical. Especially like the first half of season 1 of Arrested Development.
Yes.
That's the peak. It's peak Arrested Development. But then, I didn't need to be high every time to get it after that. It's just some sort of flip switched, and I got the joke. And I feel like
Some sort of
to
flip
give,
switched.
yeah, you heard me.
Gotcha.
And
That's what
so,
that's what Jack Burton always says.
so to give people a bone, I can understand if you expect this movie to be an Indiana Jones type movie, and you're not ready for the sort of inversion that happens, or the twist on it that happens. I can understand. I feel like it's fairly obvious, but sometimes you just don't get that it's supposed to be funny, and so you're not looking for it to be funny. But I feel like if you don't know that this is supposed to be funny, you just think it's kind of an amateur schlocky camp fest in a way that like is, you can't really get involved with the lore because it's just kind of speeding past you, but that's supposed to be like that's the joke. That's what it's supposed to be happening. And
Yeah.
it's a really fun twist on the premise. I feel like a lot of the jokes are pretty like Gracie Law, the lawyer. Come on, guys, let's keep
Yeah.
up. It's pretty
It's pretty.
pretty
It's
straightforward.
kind of right in your face, like right from the beginning. He's
Yes.
driving down a rainy road, barreling down a rainy road at night, wearing sunglasses, not using his hands from minute one. Like he's
Yeah, you have to be a fool to think we're alone in this universe.
he says that, and then he spends the entire time like freaked out by all the magic. Is like this doesn't make any sense.
Not only freaked out by all the magic, but just kind of unwilling to like reconcile it and just believe that
Actively.
it's possible. Because Lopan is talking about what he wants to do, and he's like, "Are you crazy? Is that your issue? Is that your problem?" Or a trip to the loony bin, whichever comes first. Like that's so funny. He's almost like the people that don't get the joke. He's just unwilling to accept what's happening here.
But yeah. So the rest of the crew gets in, and get like for a tour.
Oh,
They
really quick. Oiled and lubed phalanx is absolutely right. I think they thought it was a bad movie instead of an intentionally kind of fun and funny bad movie. Like I'm sure that's what it is. They think,
Yeah,
that,
that's probably that's got to be it, right? Like,
yes,
yeah,
the sort of amateur campy throwback qualities of the movie are there on purpose because it's funny given this twist and the dynamics between this character and everything happening around him, and people just see the surface level camp schlock B movie amateurishness, and they hear the exposition and they cringe like, oh, that was terrible exposition, instead of going, it's funny how terrible that exposition was.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Um, I mean, especially now that we're like really rolling in the like we're in the second half of the movie now.
Hmm.
This it's really gonna start like churning out the comedic moments,
Yeah,
especially.
you'd think by this point, they're doing some real Scooby Doo stuff in the second half of the movie. You would think it would click. Like
You
some of
would
these jokes are so obvious, like what does that say? And it says like the hell of
hell of
what?
boiling oil.
Yes, the hell of boiling oil. He goes, really? He goes, no, it says keep out.
You're
Like
kidding? Yeah,
that's
yeah. It was just keep out.
like come on, guys.
Yeah, but they get wheeled in on the wheelchairs to like a dungeon room, basically. And this is like here's the other thing, right? Like a lot of modern movies try to do what this did with Jack, right? They want
Hmm.
Jack. They want to make the main character like Jack, kind of bumbling and subordinate in like a
Buffoon. Yeah.
buffoon kind of character, subordinate to the side characters. So like when we start seeing the fight scenes, Wang is gonna kick some real ass, right? Like
Yes.
he's doing all the kung fu, all the martial arts and everything, and like he looks competent. He's fighting toe to toe with the storms, all of that, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of modern movies, what they're doing is they're just doing that part and then making the main guy, the character, look like an idiot the whole time, right?
Yes.
They
Well, the
never
other
give him
thing,
any chance at
yeah.
being competent, which this movie's about to immediate like in this next scene, he is going to be the reason that they get out of the situation that they're in because he knocks himself
Yes.
over proactively in the wheelchair to sort of be able to loosen his restraints so that he can get up and then he helps
Yes.
Wang get up and they can like start
Yeah.
looking for a way out, right? He has moments of competency where he manages to do what he's attempting to achieve. It's
He has
just
heroic
yeah,
qualities too. Yeah, and sometimes the movie does let him be heroic, and I think a lot of what he does is actually heroic. He's just maybe not as competent as he thinks he is, or like is unwilling to sort of try to fully understand what's happening here, and just kind of rushes into things head first. But here's the big difference, right? Because this is such a good point that you're making, because in a lot of modern movies, they do try to take especially certain kinds of modern movies, the sort of white male action hero and try to take him off the pedestal, make him kind of dumb, make him, the butt of the joke, make him incompetent and because you could totally see this premise done today and it would be the most cringe thing imaginable. But I think part of what works about this movie is is that he's not a coward. I feel like a modern movie would make him a coward also. You know what I mean? And that's definitely a huge step too far because he's not as bright as he thinks he is, but he's brave, right? And that's definitely like an admirable quality that he has in this movie. He's
yeah.
incredibly brave in this movie. He's just gung ho and they'll just rush right into incredibly dangerous situations.
Which is
He's
what
almost.
makes that beginning sequence with Egg, right, where he's defending
Mhm.
him to the defense attorney, where he says he showed great courage. He doesn't say, "Oh, you leave him alone. He's a hero." He says he showed great courage, right?
Yes.
Which is a smart way of sort of getting around that problem that the studio had of like he doesn't feel enough like the hero, right? Because what you're
Yeah.
saying is he showed great courage. So even though he was bumbling through it, and kind of,
Hmm.
flying by the seat of his pants.
And he says we owe him a great debt, which
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would, well, especially by the end, because, like, he's going to be the main reason that
Hmm.
this doesn't spiral out of control.
Yes.
They do. Yeah. Because
Well,
he,
just thinking about like just there are many modern examples of this type of thing where they want to subvert the action hero guy and they make him lame or they make him all sorts of other things and it comes across as really cringe and not just like funny like the way this movie does. Like they want something like this, but they take it way too far.
I
Just
can give
recent.
you a recent example, and the one that we talked about at the beginning, right, is Thor Ragnarok, which I think is a good
Yes.
movie, right? But
Hmm.
the main difference between Thor Ragnarok and this movie is that Thor doesn't get to defeat the villain in Thor
Yeah.
Ragnarok, and Jack does. Like
That's one. Yeah. Yeah.
that's like the major, like, and I think, well, it's one difference. It's not, but I think it is the biggest one, is that he doesn't get to be the hero by the end of it, really. He has to basically perform a Pyrrhic victory to allow, himself to get everything. Like, he has to move the goalposts a little bit,
Yeah.
right? He doesn't get to save the day in the traditional sense. And I think that is a little bit of, and especially considering where Love and Thunder ended up going, I think that's a bit of Taika Waititi's cynicism about this kind of story, even though he
Yes.
does a good job imitating it, like through most of Thor Ragnarok. He His cynicism about that type of character shines through in his decision not to let him get a victory.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, then I was the other example I was thinking of is a Minecraft movie
Oh,
where we have Jason Momoa's character. He is a washed up like '80s arcade game expert hero guy, or not hero, but you know what I mean. Like he's really good at arcade games. He's like famous for him. And he owns like a game store, but he's kind of washed up now. He gets transported into the Minecraft universe, but then once he gets there, it's not that he thinks really highly of himself in a way that's unearned, which is obviously what the joke is in Big Trouble in Little China. He's just also a coward and a
yeah.
and a scaredy cat and a baby. And it's just like, oh, so he has no redeeming qualities then. Great. You know what I mean? Like you could it
You could
goes
describe
to
Jack Burton as foolhardy.
yes.
Like,
They take this trope so far that it just feels mean-spirited towards the character and who they think the character represents and who they think ought to like the character. They just feel like they're trying to insult those people instead of just like, like, he's not as, he thinks he's the main character when he isn't, and he's not as bright as he thinks he is, but he's brave and he's courageous and all that sort of stuff. And he tries to say fun, quippy action hero things, but he's just not really as clever as that. you know,
yeah.
it feels way less mean spirited. It feels like he's still a very likable character, and you don't feel like the writer. This doesn't come across like the writer is resentful towards action heroes the way a lot of modern stuff does.
Yes.
Where it's like
Yes,
resentful
exactly.
of action heroes and what they represent and the people that like them. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like a fun little tongue-in-cheek joke just to be like, what if he was kind of a goofball? you know?
Yeah. Which, yeah, like, because the way it's funny because the way Kurt Russell describes him in the DVD commentary is like, yeah, he's kind of useless, but he's kind of useless, but he's showing up. Is how he describes him. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes, like, I like the idea that
He's
like
not completely useless.
he's not, well, yeah,
though.
he's not completely useless, and I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people, there's a particular subset of people who take that away from this movie and go like,
Mhm.
oh, and I think that's the problem, right? Is that that's what they're taking away from it. Is they're like, oh, he's supposed to be the hero, or like you'd think he would be the hero, but he's totally useless. And in this
Mhm.
scene, when he gets them out of the restraints for the wheelchair, he shows that that's not true. And like
Yeah.
towards the
But
end, he shows that it's not true.
just to
Also,
take a specific example we've talked about already, showing like the joke is not that he's useless and pathetic
yeah,
and thinks he's better than he is. The joke is that, for example, he thinks he is like a hot shot and that he's an expert and that he's actually incredible when he's just okay. For example, when they're like, this is going to need crackerjack timing and like total concentration. And then they go in like, oh, yeah, hi, I'm with the phone company. Oh man, I love working nights. Oh, where's the panel? It's right over here. Like they think they're genius for that move, which is very funny because they're not pathetic and they're not cowardly. It's just like, yeah, that's not as impressive
it's not
as
as
that.
impressive as you think, but it worked. So you know what?
Yes,
Good for you.
exactly. Exactly. It worked. It's just not as impressive as you're giving yourself credit for.
Yeah, which it's yeah, it's a very unique thing. It's hard to pull off, and I think that like
It is a tightrope, I think.
yeah, and this movie does it very well. It's the movies that try to imitate it
Absolutely.
that are not work, like, especially now. There's definitely an idea that this was sort of was ahead of its time in the way that it like reflects how we're treating typical protagonists now. um
Yes.
they need the people who are doing that need to like and using this as sort of the template need to take a step back and sort of understand why this is working, because it's not just because Jack Burton is a moron who gets shit on by every other character and outperformed and everything. But he's, likable enough that we
Hmm.
can kind of see him through to the end. That's not the point. The
I
point
think
is,
it's telling.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no.
The point is,
No, no, no.
I think
You go
it's
ahead.
telling. I think it's telling. Obviously, he didn't write them, but he worked closely with the screenwriters and he directed these movies, and his stamp is all over them. I think it's telling that John Carpenter can create Jack Burton and Snake Plissken and McCready from The Thing, whereas the kind of person who wants to sort of take the writes a lot of modern stories where like the traditional male action hero is like taken down a peg. That's like all they know how to do, and they don't even do that well. You know what I mean? Like John Carpenter can create like an actual cool, badass, campy, over the top action hero and a more normal, what would you say, grounded, realistic action hero man who's pretty competent and clever. And this guy who's kind of he
Somewhere in
thinks he's more
between.
clever
Yeah.
than he actually
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Yeah, there's not that many, and I think the influence of the Wangsha movies and the Hong Kong action cinema was a big factor in that,
Hmm.
because if you go back and watch like Rush Hour, right, or Rumble in the
Oh yeah,
Bronx,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Jackie Chan is doing this kind of shit all the time. Like this is sort of his bread and butter. Is like he's a goofy, lovable guy with
A bit more competent, but yes,
a
yeah,
bit more
yeah,
competent, but it like he has a lot of movies where he's like the butt of the joke in a lot of the action scenes,
yeah.
and it works. Like he's
Hmm.
doing a lot of the stunts for that and everything, but like it and definitely more competent than a Jack Burton, for example. But like
Sure.
that sort of self-deprecating but still heroic trait runs
Hmm.
through the standard protagonist of these kinds of movies. And I don't like people aren't going, it doesn't feel like the people who are trying to imitate this now are going back and looking at that and bringing that element to it. They're going back and sort of just being like, oh, they're taking the worst that they possibly taking this in the worst possible way that they could, right?
Yeah.
Like they're just like,
Isn't
oh,
it
the white
funny
guy
that the white
isn't it funny that the
yeah,
white
the
guy
white
bumbles
action
his
hero
way?
thinks he's the main character, but he isn't. Like that's the whole thing. And then a lot of what they write these days is like, oh, what if they think they're the greatest, but actually they get shown up by the female action hero? Whoa. Like that's all they know how to do. It's that one move. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
So
this is this is this is kind of uh subversive in a way that doesn't feel like that it's resentful of the norm, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Which I feel like is a rare thing nowadays, where this is actually a sort of like inverse of the typical archetype, but it doesn't stand in hostility to the traditional archetype.
Agreed. Yeah. So they're they get a little bit more exposition about the history of Lopan in this this cell that they're being confined in. It's an interesting bit of character development for Wang, who's like, we all hear these stories when we're young, and then we grow up and pretend not to believe in them. Jack saves him twice.
That's a great line, by the way. Maybe
Yeah,
we should linger on that for a moment because I think that's a great line. And because if Jack Burton is the sidekick who thinks he's the main character, then Wang is like actually the main character, right?
yeah,
In a way, you
exactly.
know. And his little bit, him representing the guy who kind of thought all that sort of mythic stuff was behind him, like pretended not to believe it, is a really great line, right?
Yeah,
Because like you can tell deep down he does believe in this stuff, like good and evil and the balancing of your mind and spirit and all that sort of stuff and heroism. Like he's living this life where he's just gambling his money away with some random trucker guy in
Yeah, like he even
Chinatown
has
and
a
stuff like
moment
that.
where he says, like, I should have gone home and got 40 winks, right? I should have gone home and got some sleep. I knew my
Yes.
fiance was coming to the airport tomorrow.
Yes.
I should have gone
Yeah.
home to sleep instead of staying out all night gambling all my money away with my trucker friend, you know?
Yes. And then he talks about how like, oh, but she's, the greatest thing in my life and she's gonna like help me put my life together. And then she gets stolen from him. So he has to sort of re-engage with the sort of mythic story at the heart of his culture in order to rescue her and sort of become the hero he needs to be. Like it's all very compelling stuff. Which is what's so funny about this movie is that that's in the background.
That's going on the sideline while we're
Yes.
just like, what? Ah,
Yeah.
come on. You can't tell me you believe in this kind of stuff. You
Yeah,
go,
but I
what, are you
really
gonna turn
like
into a
that
psych ward?
line. It's like the stories we hear as children and pretend not to believe anymore. That's a really great line. I really like that.
Yeah. I I think it's great. This is also like the scene where they escape from from Thunder in the cell is also really fun because I think this is maybe one of the most iconic scenes in this movie is Thunder's got Wang by the throat and Jack jumps on his back with a knife and puts it like right to his throat, right? And is like, like
Yeah.
don't make me kill you. And it like Thunder's like stopped for a second, right? He's like,
Mhm.
okay. Jimmy and Wang get out, and then Thunder like starts breathing in and like expanding because he's a mystic being, right? And this is gonna erupt even further later on in the movie when we have one of the most John Carpenter scenes of the whole thing.
Yes.
But he
Yeah.
starts expanding, and then like by sheer force, pushes like Kurt Russell goes flying off, lands in the wheelchair, and rolls down the hallway.
Yeah.
Two
And
people
then
come
like
out with guns to start shooting, and he barrels over them. And at the end of the hallway, there's a well. And
it just goes down into nothing. Yeah.
it just goes down into nothing. He's just screaming the whole time. And it like the wheelchair smacks into the well and gets stuck. And so he has to muscle it back up there. And this is one of those ones that I feel like today, if you showed it to a younger person today, they'd kind of be like, "Oh, what's the big deal?" Right? Like, because it doesn't look as precarious as it is. But knowing what it's like to be in a wheelchair like that, and how much strength it takes to move that thing forward, and then get out of it without it moving, or like to get out of it and like not be like awkward and end up falling. It's a
Hmm.
very powerful little blocked scene here, the way that he has to get out of it, because he has to take he has to be very careful about it and get up, because it's not locked. The wheels are going to move as soon as he like runs away from it, which I think it's a pretty tense moment. It's very well done. um,
Yeah.
and then he manages to get out. The wheelchair falls down. Uh, Jimmy hands him a revolver, and he's holding onto a Tech 9, or he's holding onto a submachine gun.
Yeah.
It looked like a Tech 9. I'm not 100%
Something
sure.
like that.
You know who would know? Rags, not me.
Rags would know.
Jimmy hands him a revolver, and he looks at it and goes, "Hey, I'll trade you." And Jimmy just goes, "Oh yeah, okay," and then hands him the submachine gun for the revolver instead. And he kind of like, he looks at it, and then grabs the other gun, the bigger gun, from Jimmy, and hands him the revolver instead, which is another nice little comedy, like pure comedy beat.
Yeah.
I think works really well. And then Thunder breaks out, and then we get our scene with our scene with Lopan kind of transforming from the old man into the ghost version of him in the ancient getup. And the special effects here look great. Like
Is that where
the
his head glows?
yes, where the light
Oh,
shines
it's
through his
so
head and his
cool.
eyes.
It's
It
so
looks
cool. And then the
so
blue comes
good.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Incredible.
it looks really, really good. especially for the time, like even for now, it looks
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
And
it
then when
looks
he
great.
phases through the walls too, it's like it like and the grate, it still looks really good. Like for
Yeah,
practical effects, it's incredible. Like this is John Carpenter's bread and butter. We're really starting to get into like the wild, crazy stuff. But he ends up in this like room in between the realms, I guess you could call it, right? Where Miao Yin is suspended, in suspended hypnosis animation kind of thing. Um, and
oh, she's floating,
the way
right?
she's
Yeah.
floating, and we establish a little bit more about Lopan and what he's attempting to do. He's calling to his demon or his god. Um, yeah, and
There's
like
a sort of yeah. He's like we didn't talk about it, but earlier when he's talking about his plan, he's making essentially a sacrifice to a higher deity in order to become human again or to become flesh again.
yeah.
Yes.
Now we don't know this yet, but like the plan is essentially that he or the deal that he has the with the demon or the
Hmm.
the
Sure.
god,
Whatever it
whatever it
is.
is that he has to marry the girl with green eyes to become flesh again, and then he has to sacrifice her to gain the power that will let him take over the world,
Right.
which is a
Right.
very symbolically interesting little tidbit in that story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. And then, well, I won't spoil it yet, but the fact that there's two women with green eyes is so great.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway,
Well, and that really makes that payoff earlier, right? When Burton sees Grace Law in the airport, and he says, "Oh yeah, that girl," and he's like, "She's got green eyes. You know how rare that is." And he goes, "How can you tell from here?" Right? Like it kind of makes that pay off a little bit. Yeah,
yeah.
it's good writing, man. It's
There's
solid.
another great line that Lopan gets later regarding those two. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah. So they are now the big three: Burton and Wang and Jimmy are moving through the complex, and they round a corner, and it's fun. It's really funny because they round a corner, and Wang goes, "Let's go." It's like you see him looking, and he goes, "Let's go." Turns around, goes to Bert and says, "Let's go. It's clear." Turns back around, and there's just a guy standing there.
Yeah, it's not clear at
It's
all. Yeah,
not clear at all. Like,
there's some great comedy that's like just visual comedy. It's not just people saying funny lines. It's
oh,
like
and then
actual.
this is one of the first bits where we really get the improv or the on the set decisions of how to make Jack or how to take Jack out of the action for
Yeah.
as much time as possible. Wang gets into a fist fight with these guys. Jack rounds the corner and starts trying to shoot and realizes the safety is on. So then he turns the safety off and has an accidental discharge of the gun. You see this in the trailer. Like he gets the safety off and the gun goes off and he kind of jumps. He reacts like you would for an accidental discharge. Somebody pointed that out in the chat earlier, which is like
Yeah.
with the accidental discharge. And then he starts shooting, gets gets the guy, and Jimmy looks a little shell shocked, and Jimmy looks at him and goes, "What is that? The first time you ever plugged somebody?" And he goes, "Of course not." So he's masquerading even more as like a guy who does this all the time, but like
Yes.
he's just really a trucker who has
Yeah.
not had this kind of experience before.
No, he's never killed anybody.
No.
Yeah.
So God. And then they get into the okay, so then they get into the scene where all of the women are in cages, right?
Yes.
And we cut in on Margot, the reporter, who is talking out loud as she writes in her journal in her cage. And I'm just going to
Yes.
read you the dialogue that she say.
Please
All
do.
has become strange. A world so unreal and yet at once so frightening. and she pauses to sort of like breathe in the profundity of her own words. Uh, and their ruse, their plan to get in here and to free them is for Wang to hold a gun to Jimmy's head and sort of just rely on the fact that even the Chinese people can't tell the Chinese people apart. Because he's going to pretend like he's holding one of their own hostage, and they just don't recognize that it's actually their like his friend. While Jack Assassin's Creeds along the underside of the bridge to get
Sure.
to the cages and open them.
And he shoots them all off with a gun, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
I also like just as a little detail earlier, like when he finally turns the safety off, there's an accidental discharge, and then when he's shooting the gun, his feet kind of move when he shoots in a way that like you can tell he's not used to shooting that gun at all, and he's just kind of aiming it really imprecisely. It's pretty funny. Topaz Dude says, if this film was made today, imagine how horribly underlit it would be. Oh God, I don't even want to imagine how ugly this movie would be if they shot it today. I quite like the way this movie is shot. It's really nice. It's got that classic kind of 80s film look to it. I bet you, hold on. I bet you I could predict what film stock it was shot on. I'm going to say it was probably shot on, God, what's that? It's like 200T. What is that? Eastman 200T? Is that what it was? No, it's Eastman 100T. Okay. There are a lot of films shot in the 70s and 80s that were shot on Eastman 100 and 200T. It's a great looking film stock. It looks great. I love the way this movie is lit. It's very, like I said before, it's shot in a way that like it works for the comedy and it works for the like sincere action thriller. It's great. There's a lot of great lighting. There's a lot of great dramatic lighting cues as well. Like in the very opening scene with the dramatic sort of Venetian blind, harsh noir lighting and things like that. There's a lot of fun neon in the final action set piece. Yeah, it's a great looking movie. It's great. Yeah, if they remade it today, two things. One, it would be horribly underlit and incredibly shallow. It would have an incredibly shallow depth of field in a really obnoxious sort of way. The other thing that it would do, it would make him also a coward and not just kind of a little stupid. That's the other thing they would do if they made it today. Yeah, George Specs, yes, exactly. He says he one hands the Tech 9 like it's a revolver and he's in a Western. Yes.
I kept thinking that too. It was just like, that's a submachine gun. He can probably just like spray and pray with that thing, like, but he's doing it like single shots.
Yeah, the way he's holding it is very
it's like so funny.
He doesn't know what he's doing at all, and he's just pretending that he's used to this sort of thing. It's great. I think it's in the trailer too. There it is. It's a great moment.
Yeah. So a lot of great action sequences.
He's shooting the lock off the. He's trying to rescue Gracie and everyone else.
While Wang and Jimmy are busy kung fu fighting on the bridge, which is great. I mean, the choreography on the fight scenes in this movie is fantastic. I mean, like they really did a good job. There's not a lot of one of the things that I've been rewatching with my girlfriend lately is this show Grimm from NBC. Have you ever heard of that one?
I assume that has something to do with the Grimm fairy tales.
Oh boy, it sure does. It's a police procedural inspired heavily by the Grimm's fairy tales.
Cool.
It's a little bit more like a little bit. It's very, very dumb, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun, at least for the first couple seasons. But one of the things that they like, you'll notice it a lot in that show, but it happens a lot in just like even in big action sequences, action movies now. They are so bad at blocking these fights that they have to sort of like edit around and shake the camera a lot to make sure that you just can't really tell what's going on. This movie is a very refreshing like look at as to what a competent fight sequence
they're not hiding it. They're showing it off. They're not hiding bad choreography. They're showing off good choreography. Makes all the world of difference.
Yeah,
in an
and
action movie.
it's fun too how like nobody like that you never question that Wang, a restaurant owner in Chinatown, just like knows kung fu.
And
He's
he is pretty good at it.
he's
Yeah.
pretty good. He's good enough that like and you know he's inspired. His body and spirit, his mind and spirit are as one, because he is determined to rescue Miao Yang. So
Got to rescue the
he
girl.
got to rescue the girl.
Yeah. The other thing is, if it was shot today, the action would fall into one of two camps. One, it would just be horribly blocked, horribly choreographed, and they'd have to edit around, and they'd just constantly cheat where people are. And you would, if you looked at it with a fine tooth comb, the choreography in terms of where people are, shooting from, no cover, all that sort of stuff would be terrible. Or the other camp it would fall into is that everything would be like one long, unbroken take. Because like every action movie that isn't trying to hide bad choreography is trying to do long, unbroken oneers.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a nice middle ground in the middle of those two that seems to be completely lost. I don't know. I don't quite get the obsession with oneers. I like them. They can be really impressive. They can be really effective. But it feels like anytime I see a trailer for a new action movie, any sort of very John Wick inspired action movie, there's these long unbroken takes where the camera's going whoa all over the place. The camera's spinning and doing all these Dutch angles every time a punch happens, and it's just like, okay, but you can use different camera angles, and you don't have to do one long unbroken take, and you can still show off good choreographed action. I feel like we don't see that at all anymore.
Yeah.
It's one of two extremes. It's either like, oh, it's like this balletic thing where it all happens in this one long unbroken take, and isn't that amazing? And it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah, it
impressive,
can
but
be.
that's not
It
the
can
only
be.
way to do it. Not the only way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go back. Let's take a look at some of those Hong Kong action movies. Let's look at some
For
old
real.
Jackie Chan stuff and like get some inspo for stuff. Um, so the person who asked is Grimm about them tracking a Grimm's fairy tale serial killer. Uh, the answer is no. Um, a detective in the Portland police finds out that he is a descendant of the Grimms, who are all the fairy tale monsters from the Grimm universe or from the Grimm's fairy tales are real, and they hide as people in Portland, and all the crimes essentially in Portland are committed by these fairy tale monsters. His destiny is to kill them, but he is a cop and doesn't want to do that, and he wants to make friends with them. It's saying it out loud, it's a little bit difficult to explain to explain exactly what's good about it. But trust me, there's fun characters. It's not entirely insane. Some of it really is. There's like a girl who's a dragon, or her dad is. I don't even remember. Yeah, it's really dumb, but it's fun. It's good turn your brain off kind of, police procedural TV, at least for a little while. I've seen some spoilers for things that happen in the future in the show that morally sound entirely fucked. But what doesn't from back in the early 2000s, am I right? Like, sounds like a worse Wolf Among Us or Fables. Yes. Yes. That's it.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. It is a worse version of the Wolf Among Us. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily as like, good TV, but it's fun. It's fun, and it scratches the Angel itch if you don't want to just rewatch Angel. So there's that.
So where were we? They're trying to
Oh,
escape.
they're getting out.
Big action
Somebody
set
mentioned
piece.
that he shoots every lock and doesn't hit them, but he still takes the locks off of each cage as if he's hit them in in
I
the
didn't
scene.
catch that.
So he
But-
runs through the cages and he's shooting the locks on them. They're
Yeah,
not.
no, I heard what you said, but I didn't notice that he wasn't actually hitting them when I
Yeah.
was watching it.
Yeah, I just scrolled back through it. It's kind of funny. Like he's actually He's not. None of them are getting hit. He's just still taking the locks off, as if he shot them.
Does that mean that they were unlocked?
Yeah, basically, I think.
Well,
But so they run
that's
down the
pretty
hallway,
goofy.
and like this is another one of my favorite moments in the movie. Is like they run away, they're getting shot at. They close the big door behind them, which again is going to take Thunder a comically long time to open, just like it did before. And they get into this room where there's like a little pool of water. And right when they get in there, one of the girls just immediately headfirst dives right into it. Like, it doesn't wait to be told, like, that's where we're going or anything. She just jumps right in. It's just really funny. Then there's more that do it. And as everybody else, like, as they're getting away, they push Margot in. And
Well, there's a really funny line coming up where stop me if I'm skipping over something, but I really like me. It's like, will you stop rubbing your body up against mine? I can't concentrate when you do that.
that's I think a little bit later,
Oh,
when they're in the water, right? But
sure.
he pushes Margot in. Wang and Jimmy arrive, and then he's getting his gun ready to sort of like, because Wang and Jimmy get in the water and run away. He's getting his gun ready to sort of help, hold them off a little bit, because he's going to be the last guy out. He's going to be the last man out, right? Like, that's the other thing about him that would be different now, if we made this
Yes.
today. He's in every scene, always making sure everybody else gets out before him, or like is safe before he is.
Yeah.
But Grace bumps him as he's getting the gun ready. Grace bumps him and he falls into the water. And then she does the worst dive I think I've ever seen a person do.
She belly flops.
She belly flops pretty fucking hard. She like makes the arms as if she's gonna dive into it, and then just like goes belly first into the pool.
Pretty good.
Wang and Jimmy jump in. They swim through. There's bullets flying. They're all out, and then there's a fun little scene where Grace is out. Like they swim through a little pipe, and Grace is in the sewer, sort of like waiting. And Margot comes up, and she goes, "Where are we? Where's Eddie?" And Margot goes, "Beats me," and keeps swimming. And then Eddie comes up, and she goes, "Where's Jack? Where's Jack?" And he goes, "Well, I think there's three of them. Like it happens three times." But like then
I don't know and beats me and all
I don't know,
that,
beat me. And then Jack just like surfaces. He was in the water before any of them. So he's just been sort of like hiding in the corner there, basically, until he hears her say like, "Oh, Jack, Jack." He comes up, they kiss, and she kind of stops him and goes, "Hey," and he's like, "Sorry, I'm just thrilled to be alive." Like kind of making the excuse. So they've made it out, or they've made it into some kind of giant garbage disposal, is what they say. They've gotten into the.
Well, what I really like about the like, sorry, I'm just thrilled to be alive thing is it's kind of poking fun at the fact that so many of like romances and action movies are just two people who've never actually met before, but they're just thrown together in these life or death circumstances. And so like that's why they sort of develop a romance, and it's not really often more complicated than that. So it seems to be kind of poking fun of that, like where they kiss and she's like, "Hey," and he's like, "Sorry, I'm just thrilled to be alive." Nice little joke.
It's pretty good. There's gonna be another bit of that later on. We'll speed up a little bit just to get through it. So they get out. They're in the sewer. They run through the storeroom, and he's explaining that there's like offices and everything, a nice front out there on the out there. He finds the door. He says, "All right, we're almost out of here." Now from here on, it gets pretty normal. Offices, storerooms, nice false front. I count to 3. I open that door. We move out. Everybody got that. Follow the leader, 1, 2, 3. And he opens the door, and it's just like the whole crowd of
Of goons. Yeah.
goons just staring at him, and he closes the door immediately, turns around and goes, "We may be trapped," which Shaun of the Dead
Yeah.
did a little something like that too.
Yes, it feels very much of a kind
Very
with
much
that
like
sort
a
of
Hot
joke.
Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead kind of joke. You know
Well,
what?
the
Hot
Shaun of
Fuzz is
the
another one that's sort of similar to this, except that like they kind of take the opposite tack where the guy is overcompetent for what he's doing.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, but in Shaun of the Dead, I think the parallel joke would be when he climbs up the little kitty ladder to like look over the edge to see if there are any zombies there, and there are tons of them. Then he
yes,
comes back
exactly.
down. Yeah, that's sort
Nuts.
of that feels like the comparable joke.
Yeah. So
And then he
then,
says hide, and they're like hide. He's like hide. They only saw me.
but they're breaking down the door so like they can
Yeah,
hear him saying that to
yeah,
everybody. Um,
yeah. Like he's trying to be a good guy. He's
Yeah,
trying to be
he's trying.
helpful.
He's doing his best. Like he said, he'll do his best.
Yeah,
Fight
I'll do my
sequence
best.
ensues. They all start rushing in, and Wang, jumps up, kicks one in the face, does the whole thing. Jack's gun is out of ammo, so he goes to grab his knife out of his shoe and throws it by accident. He's a little overeager to pull it out, so he wings it to the other side of the room. He jumps behind a shelf, comes back out with the knife and the gun bared, and everybody's been defeated
Yeah,
by Wang. Um,
yeah. Classic.
classic beats. Eggs
Yeah,
got Eggs got the bus waiting out front. He's gonna get them all out of there, right? So they decide to play another little trick on the security guard. So they walk out around. It's like, all right, boys, if you ever have another problem like that again, what you're gonna do is reach for the sky. And he pulls the empty gun out and points it at
and
him.
that allows all the other ones to come running out
Well,
behind
yeah,
him.
they
Yeah.
all come running up behind him, except Grace, who gets distracted by a Scooby Doo like statue moving out of the way, and she looks through the door as if she's like really
Wait.
curious.
Wait, because it's better than that. As they're passing the statue, the eyes move to follow them, like there's someone behind it,
Yeah.
and then she's walking past the statue, and someone like basically jumps out of the statue to grab her.
Well, it opens like on a hinge, and she like stops to look into the doorway,
Yeah.
and then a giant monster hand comes out and grabs her and pulls her in, which
Yes.
is from a position where she absolutely must have seen it when she was looking there. So it's
Yeah, that
like,
makes sense.
yeah, it's kind of funny. They all get out, they get onto the bus. The security guards start shooting. Miao Yin, they didn't get her. Grace, they didn't get her. There's a weird, like, Kappa demon monster that grabs Grace and, like, runs through the tunnels with her. She's been caught. Miao Yin has not been freed. And this is where Lo Pan discovers that there are two girls with green eyes who have fallen into his lap.
Hmm.
There's like another funny sequence where like he goes to stroke her face and she like goes to bite his finger, but she does it sort of like a chihuahua would do if he was shaking a toy around. So she's like kind of shaking her head. Um, and then we get the line that inspired the stream, where Margot says, "This is like some sort of radical Alice in Wonderland. That's what it is." So you know,
You've got a bestseller on your hands.
very yeah. So they got to go back in.
Yeah, they got it. Yep. They managed to escape, but now they have to go back in to rescue. They go in to get the one girl, and then they come out and they've lost another one. It's just pretty funny.
They've got to regroup. They're getting ready to go in. Egg has gathered his forces, and Jack asks them. This is where Jack asks him, like, "You got any guns?" He goes, "No, not for dealing with Lo Pan, but here's one for you. It'll make you feel better, like dirty hair." And he pulls a big 44 out of his pocket, and Jack just goes, "I'll stick with these. I don't want that one. Yeah, no thanks."
Yeah.
And so
Little meta joke.
Egg has to go in. It's his destiny to face down Lo Pan. Margot wants to go with them, and she uses the excuse, "You can't keep the press out, mister. This is America."
Like they're such sort of like cartoonish cutouts of their like role in the story in a fun way. She's the reporter. She's trying to get her big break with this story. So all her dialogue is like her fancying herself an incredible writer and journalist.
It's pretty. And he
You
said,
can't keep the press out. It's America.
"You have to stay here with Eddie. He's got a crush on you." And she's like, "Oh yeah, like you've got a crush on Gracie? Like we're in like a middle school playground? Like what? I
He's like,
just
are you
want my
kidding?
truck back."
I just want my truck back. Exactly.
And we get the scene. So after this, we get a scene of Grace finding Miao Yin and asking, "I was like, are you okay? Are you Miao Yin?" And then Lopan shows up. "Who are you, Lopan?" So everybody's got all the white characters have questions. You know, that's
Yes.
kind of the thing.
Yeah.
She says no, 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 and Miao Yin wakes up to just go yes, and goes back to sleep. Like, "This is the darkest magic. My soul swims in it, scattered across time, trapped in the world of formlessness until I find her. The girl, and marry her. Marry her? A girl with green eyes." So he then, like, hypnotizes her. So now they're getting ready to go in with Egg. Um,
Is this where he says like, or basically he's like, "Fuck it, I'll marry both of them." Like,
uh,
does that
That's
come
a
later?
little bit later. It's a little bit later
Okay,
because
but
they're going to go down
I
the
just
fireman pole into the sewer through
yeah, I just
Egg's
like I like that line a lot.
storehouse.
Where like, yeah, obviously his plan is he finds a woman with green eyes, he's gonna marry her, and then he has to sacrifice her immediately in order to get the worldly power he wants. And so when he finds out there's two women with green eyes, he's like, "Great, I'll marry both."
Yeah. Well,
That
they
way he
both
can kill
survive
one
the
and keep the
burning
other.
blade, is what drives him to do that. So they start going through the sewer. The sewer looks great. The set for the sewer is very like old
Sure.
fashioned, kind of almost like Lord of the Rings when they go to get the ghost army. Looks a little bit like that. There's fog hanging over the ground. They have their martial arts sequence where they just perform the motions or the poses of their style for the women in a hall of Buddhas while the guys are coming through. And as they're coming through, um, a giant fish monster leaps out of a hole and eats one of the eats one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Egg throws a little smoke bomb in there and says, "You'll come out no more." And Jack Burton's just like, "What'll come out no more? What is that? What's going on?"
Like some giant fish monster eats a random guy, and they respond like you will come out no more, demon." He's like, "What? What's going on? Like, what is
What?
that?"
What is that? So this is the ritual that the storms are performing is the ritual of the burning blade. So the two girls are like handed these like these glowing swords that float up and they touch like a pearl up there. They both pass the test, so that's when he decides that he will marry both women. Which
Hey, fuck it, I'll have both. Yeah,
fuck it. Well, that means that he can marry one and sacrifice the other and have the best
yeah,
of both worlds, basically.
exactly. It's that simple.
The giant fish monster thing that eats the guy, by the way, looks great. It's
Yeah,
so creepy and weird. I love it.
and it never comes up before or again.
Yeah,
It's just there. It is
nobody does these practical monster effects like John Carpenter. They're just
yeah,
something missing
something
from
special
yeah
about them.
something special about him. Um, so then we get through the sewer and they're getting ready. Egg has his speech about exposition they got to get through. They see a couple of people dressed for the wedding. This is another really great line. Is "What's in the flask, Egg? Magic potion. I thought so. Good. What do we do? Drink it? Yeah, good. I thought so." Uh, which which is pretty good. The set for the wedding is like these traditional Chinese gods and spirits and a big skull like outlined in neon that looks really
Oh
cool.
yeah, the neon looks incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
love it.
it's great.
There's like a red and blue neon that kind of runs through the whole thing, and then there's that like giant multi-armed god being thing
Yeah,
that's like cloaked in like a sort of green neon.
Hmm.
It looks incredible. It
There's an
looks great.
elevator coming down out of the mouth of the skull, so that like when they're
Yeah,
riding, like it's just incredible. James Hong was on like I think platform shoes for this to increase his height, right? And he was on those
sure.
platform shoes on that elevator, and he was very very nervous about that during the shooting of the film, because
That's
he
fun.
felt like he was gonna fall every single take. He was, but looks great. As they're coming through the hallway, they encounter like a scry, like a guardian, the guardian of all eyes. Like it has an eyeball in its mouth and it's all over the thing. Looks very
Oh
John
yeah,
Carpenter monster.
sure. That thing's creepy as hell. It's like a
Yeah.
little testicle with a bunch of eyes.
Yeah. And everything that it sees, Lopan sees. And they start having a conversation with it, where he's revealing what he's gonna do. He's like, I'm gonna sacrifice the white one and live out my earthly pleasures with the Asian one. I get, two for the price of one kind of thing. And Jack just shoots it. He just starts shooting it and it runs away. They all look at him like, what are you doing that for? And he goes, why, you never know till you try.
That's sort of his whole attitude in every scene.
Yeah, pretty much. They get to the Hall of the Buddhas. Nobody's there. They realize that they're in the other chamber and that it is behind. This is another really funny line. It's behind a set of doors with a tapestry on it. And they knock on it. He goes, hey, Jack. He's like, what is it, hollow? Hollow. Fuck it. And he cuts it open and just opens it up. It turns out it's a pair of doors that leads to an elevator that only goes down. So they have to drink the magic potion. Now, the magic potion, what exactly does it do? Good question.
I don't.
You can see things no one else can see, do things no one else can do. Is this real things? It is as real as Lopan. Hey, what more can a guy ask for? He says, the 6 demon bag. Like, terrific, terrific. A 6 demon bag, sensational. What's in it, egg? Wind, fire, all that kind of thing. And so Wang, in order to cut this exchange short, because Jack is a little skeptical about drinking the magic potion, he doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily want
he
to.
doesn't want to drink Michael's secret stuff.
He doesn't, yeah, Butter's creamy goo. He's not. Wang picks up on this and goes, here's to the Army and Navy and the battles they have won. Here's to America's colors, the colors that never run. And Jack kind of gives him this profound look. He goes, may the wings of liberty never lose a feather. And they finally take the shot.
It's so good. It's such a great moment.
It is setting up, like, they all get into the elevator to ride down.
Well, I really quick, I like it because Wang is sort of doing it because he's trying to speak the language of Jack.
Yes.
But he's not. He does mean it also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Wang,
yeah.
like he's not doing it just
as
to
just as a way to get him to drink it. But he's like
an. He's trying to appeal to him through patriotism, and it's like actually rather sincere and fun. That little line, it comes completely out of nowhere, but he's just like, hey, Jack, here's to the Army and Navy and the battles they've won. Here's to America's colors, the colors that never run. It's a great little line.
Well, it's funny too, because it's like he can sort of read the pattern of, like, you're giving him too much exposition. Let's just say it's for America and we can get it. Like.
Yeah. And he's like, goddamn right, may the wings of liberty never lose a feather. And then they drink it. They're in the elevator. And he's like, I feel pretty good. I'm not scared at all.
This scene in the elevator is so dry and fun, like, because they all have this look like they just smoked a blunt, right? Like they're all like looking at each other. It's like, I feel pretty good. Like I feel kind of I'm not scared at all. I feel kind of invincible. Yeah, me too. And then the one guy, like, they make the little sign that they, like, their little gang sign to each other. And then he puts his hand on Egg's shoulder and starts like rubbing it. And Jack kind of looks at him like weird and goes, is it getting hot in here or is it just me? Which is, it's so strange. It's such a weird scene to include, like, right at this point of the movie. Like, they just It's like a weird homoerotic scene.
Yeah. Or they're feeling so good that it starts to get a little too gay for Jack. Like,
He's like, it's
yeah.
getting a little gay in here, isn't it, boys?
I don't know about all that. But I like, yeah. But it's also kind of funny. You skipped over it, but it's just a quick line where he does the opposite of the trope. He says, I've got a very positive attitude about this," which
Yeah.
is like obviously the opposite of the like I've got a
I got
bad
a
feeling
bad
about
feeling
this
about
trope.
this.
Yeah,
It,
good,
so
fun.
they have to like they get out of the elevator and they're just sort of standing around watching this happen. Lopan's up on the
The start of the
stage
ceremony. Yeah,
beneath the multi-armed deity ringed in neon. The ceremony is beginning. He's addressing his disciples. And he's got a needle of love that he must pierce Mei Lin or Miao Yin with in order to get flesh and blood. And or to become flesh so that they can kill him. And Egg's urging them to wait. And
he says, "I'd like to shoot that bastard." And Egg's like, "Not until he's married. Then he's flesh."
yeah, then he's
Yeah.
ours for certain. And he grabs her arm with the needle and is like, "I will now insert it into Miao Ying." And he goes, "Come, my love, give it to me." And he starts like making this like weird fumbling, like awkward fumbling motion of like trying to stick the needle into her arm, which is like very clearly meant to sort of, be a like a sex thing, a sex
He
pun.
can't find the hole kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it starts working, and then the Guardian sees them, which cuts everything a little bit short.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lopan is like, get them. So they all start screaming. They get ready to fight. Jack points the Tech 9 straight up and fires off a couple rounds, which knocks some rocks loose, and he passes out. He's out.
They fall onto his head.
They
And
fall
knocks
into
him
his head,
unconscious
and now he's knocked unconscious.
for the next like 30 to 40 seconds at least. Yeah. It's it's exactly what
it is.
Yeah,
It is 30.
perfect.
It is exactly 30 seconds of the scene, which is really funny. So he sees Gracie fall off the stage and runs out to sort of help her. Wang gets into a one-on-one with the storm Rain, and it's a pretty cool
Yeah.
sequence. They have a really well
Yeah.
choreographed sword fight. It's utter chaos everywhere else.
Yeah.
Jack gets a clear shot at Lopan on the stage, and he takes his sweet fucking time getting that gun pointed. So Thunder grabs it out of his hand and smashes it with his fist. Egg throws a smoke bomb and knocks Thunder out of the fight for a while, so that Jack, isn't completely outmanned there.
Yeah. I like that his name is Egg. It's funny every time I hear it.
It really is. Jack goes to get his knife because his gun is gone, so he goes to get his knife out of his boot, and one of the big armored soldiers that they saw earlier in the hallway, who don't have peripheral vision, by the way, because they walk right past them, and the masks are clearly keeping them from being able to see anything other than right in front of them. It comes up to him, and so he rolls onto his back, pushes his knife through his shoe, and sticks it through the warrior's gut. So he dies, or through his heart with his foot. So he dies, but then he's holding him up with his legs, and he can't get him off. So he kills
him, but then he's trapped by him. Yeah,
he's trapped by him, kind of like Gimli with the warg, right, in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Lopan is drinking some blood out of Miao Yin's wrist, and Egg has this really great moment where he loads up like essentially a grenade launcher, and he's kind of cackling to himself. He loads it up with a crystal or a firework or something, and he shoots it at him, and Lopan like kind of puts his hands in front of him and does a little force deflection. The fight with the storm is still going on, but then this is another moment that I really love. Egg and Lopan says peasant magic and puts his little pinkies together with his long fingernails and shoots a green beam at them, or at Egg. Egg shoots a little pink beam out, and then there's this really cool sword fighting sequence between like two traditional Chinese warriors, they're very backlit, so you just mostly see their silhouettes, right? And they're
Yeah.
fighting each other in the air. It's a really cool depiction of this kind of magic fighting one another. But while they're doing this, James Hong is moving his thumbs around like he's playing like he's button mashing in Mortal Kombat, like
Yeah.
trying to get the win, which is really funny. It's because Egg is not doing that. Egg's kind of doing like your standard push your hand forward and act like it's straining you kind of thing.
Yeah.
James Hong is pretending like he's playing Atari, which is very fun. He then it ends in a draw, and he says, "You never could beat me, Egg Shun." And the lightning guy comes down and breaks up the fight. Miao Ying starts slapping Lo Pan and takes him out of the fight for a little bit. So it's just all chaotic and nuts. But he gets Miao Ying and gets her up the escalator. The lightning guy shuts the skull's mouth. Not good enough though, because Wang's gonna run up after him. And Gracie and Burton are gonna go up there as well to go lend a hand. They get into the elevator, and she goes, "Do you have a gun?" She goes, "Where does this go?" "Up to his office, Lo Pan's office. It's cooler up there. From there we can." And then he's trails off because he's realizing that she's dressed in a pretty attractive costume.
Yeah.
And he's his animal instincts are sort of taking over. She asks, "Do you have a gun, I hope, because I have a knife." "A knife? This guy's 12 feet tall." 7 feet. "Hey, don't worry, I can handle him. I took something. I can see things no one else can see." "How come you're dressed like that?" I was getting married.
He's very observant.
He's very observant. My eyes are green.
You can see things
too,
no one else can see. I can tell that you're wearing something different.
She goes, "He was marrying both of us because I guess my eyes are green too." And then he starts making out with her. They get out of the elevator, and this is one of the things Kurt Russell was like, in all the action movies where they have that kiss, and then there's never any lipstick on them afterward. What if? And they were just yeah, that sounds great. So for the rest of the fights, he's going to be walking around with lipstick all over his face and teeth, which is very funny.
Yes.
He decides to he sees Thunder and Lo Pan just hanging out in the hallway talking about it, about sacrificing Miao Yin to get the power to take over the world. And he just goes, "Not so fast, gentlemen." Lo Pan, "Is it too much to ask, Thunder? Kill him for me." It won't solve anything, Dave. "Too many people around here have been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast." You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?" "Who?" "Jack Burton. Me." Then Wang comes out and does a cool flip several times over to get ready. And we find out what Jack Burton always says at a time like this. "What the hell?"
What the hell?
What the hell? And then the fight starts. Wang and Thunder run off to a different part of the hallway. And Jack is left alone with his knife and Lo Pan and Miao Yin. So he throws it at Lo Pan, who kind of just shuffles to the side, and it misses completely. And everybody looks at him like, "Really?" And he kind of he's like, "Ah, shit," kind of rolls his eyes. Lo Pan grabs the knife and is like, "Goodbye, Mr. Burton. And this is a nice knife. Goodbye, Mr. Burton," and flings it at him. Jack catches it out of midair, flings it right back, and kills Lo Pan instantly. Gets the one shot right into his head.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because he had so many misses in this final action sequence. As we've been talking through it, there's so many things like him getting knocked out by the rocks, him throwing the knife and missing, and all these opportunities where they could have had a badass heroic moment for him, and it just doesn't work. But then finally, he gets one that hits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He manages to catch the knife out of thin air and then grab it and throw it back at him and hit him. Is it like dead between the eyes? It's something like
It's like
that.
right in his forehead. It's like yeah,
Yeah.
right in his forehead. He instantly
And then
kills
he's
him.
and then he says it's all in the
It's all in the
reflex.
reflexes.
Like he gets an incredibly it's amazing, but it is a very lucky shot. He's had so many misses and then he finally gets one that works. He finally hits that 1 in a million shot and then he acts like, yeah, it's all in the reflexes. I'm pretty amazing. That's just Jack Burton, baby.
Oh god, it's so funny. It's such a like it's by turns both anticlimactic sort of because like this is the big villain, right? And
Yeah.
like this is the way that he goes out. But
Yes.
also it's such a good payoff because of
Yes.
how much they've built up like how much of a boob Jack can be, right?
Yeah.
Like they've really built it up and now like we get a call back to the bottle at the beginning. So like we've set
Hmm.
this up at the start. He gets like you see how quick it is when he reacts, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
yeah, it's a he gets the win. And it's like it's kind of like by happenstance, but there you go. And
But it's
meanwhile, the
not
big fight between
yeah.
Thunder and Wang is happening off screen.
Yeah. It's
So
pretty incredible. Mr. Redhead says setups and payoffs. What a novel idea for a movie. That's the thing. Like the movie is such a farce, but it's still chock full of setups and payoffs. It still
like
really
it's
cares
very
about
well written, yeah. Like
making sure all those character details pay off. You know.
yeah.
But
It's I mean, it's great. It's a really great way of ending it. It's sort of like again, it's the part that's missing, especially for me with like Thor Ragnarok, right? Where like
yeah.
Thor doesn't even get the chance to be the hero by the end, really. He has to just like step aside and let someone else do it for him, which is not really like it's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah, if you
Well, think
wanted to
about
give
like
that
we've taken the action hero and we've sort of belittled him and made him feel kind of like, implied that he doesn't know what he's talking about and he thinks he's better than he is. And we take every opportunity we can to take him out of the action and let the other side characters do all the important fighting. But then he gets one big one at the end and it's almost the most important one. So it's like, I don't know, the movie sort of respects the audience and that it wants some degree of heroism from him that it like finally gives it to you right at the very end.
yeah, exactly. Like it's not telling you that the character needs to learn that he can't be a hero. You know,
Yes.
that's the
Yes. God damn, yes.
that's really the main difference. Is like it's telling you like yeah, even if you fuck up, like you still have a chance to be heroic, right? You still have a
Yeah.
chance to do the right thing and to get the win, you know?
Yeah, it's all in the reflex.
It's all in the reflexes. That's what it's telling you. So, Thunder comes in and sees Lopan has been cooked, and so this is like one of the most John Carpenter moments of the movie. He starts like swelling, like into a
Yes.
giant like freakish balloon man that's going to
Steam coming out of his nose and ears. Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna like explode. Uh, we forgot to mention that Rain, the rainstorm, he kind of goes to like do a special fancy move flying through the air at Wang earlier in the fight scene, and Wang throws his sword at him and catches him in the gut and kills him. Yeah, so like that's
Good job,
yeah,
Wang.
good job. So he's out of the picture. Thunder has Allahu Akbar and blown up blown up.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all? You
he
from time to
from
time.
time to time everyone yeah gets a little bit of that and so then the room crumbles behind them and the lightning storm guy comes out of the hallway or approaches in the hallway and this scene is kind of fucking terrifying the way that they frame it and the way that it like it's set up to this point because like this guy is probably the scariest of the three, right? Like he
Sure.
shoots literal lightning out of his fists.
Laurel lightning.
Literal lightning is pretty spooky. So he's but he's busy just kind of shooting things randomly for a while, like shooting the roof to make things collapse and fall down on fire. Um, so they're getting away. There's a hole in the ceiling that they can jump through. Um, Jack makes the jump of his life, the vertical of his
Yep.
life.
It's
Up,
a it's an incredible jump.
yeah, it's wild, like with a it's got to be like a 6 foot vertical. That's actually fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and then Egg is up top. Like as they get into that, there's another hole in the room above them, right? And Egg's up there with a crossbow. And Jack yells up to us like, "How'd you get up there?" And Egg just goes, "It wasn't easy. Stand aside," and shoots a crossbow thing with like a pulley on it so that they can ride
Yeah.
the rope up through there. Um, they pretty much get away. Wang's trapped because Thunder's coming up through the hole, so they drop a Buddha statue on him, and he explodes. um, like
This is where is this where all the Buddha statues knock over
no,
like
that's right when
dominoes?
Lopan dies. They all knock
Oh,
over in order.
okay.
There's Buddha statues in the other hallway where Egg is, and he just picks one up and drops it on
Right.
the guy.
Just as a side note, I really like when they all tumble down like dominoes. It's pretty fun.
Yes. So then, more chaos ensues as they're running out of the building. They find Jack's truck in the garage, and so everybody gets in. There's some more fights. Egg throws another smoke bomb and clears the way. They get in, and he's like, "Ah, damn, they took the key." And Grace says, "But don't you have a spare?" He's like, "Well, of course I do, but it's underneath the oh." And then he just grabs it from underneath the dashboard.
Listen, he's had a long day.
He's
All
had a
right,
long
guys.
day. It's a tough. It's been tough on him. Um, I do like this little bit of setup too, right? Because he turns the key and there's a weird noise, and Grace says, "What was that?" And he assumes she's talking about the engine starting up, so he says a 6.9 on the Richter scale to sort of like talk his
Show
truck up a
off.
little
Yeah.
bit. We're gonna
Yeah.
find out later that what she was actually hearing was the weird like goober monster climbing
Yeah.
into the back of the truck. And
Yes, because this movie has a little Carrie stinger at the end where it's like, ah, look, the Goober Monster's still alive because we didn't see the Goober Monster die.
we didn't see that for a while. What is that thing? Who cares? It's here now.
It's this like awful monster they keep in like the labyrinth of their weird Chinese underworld. Yeah,
Yeah, who
it's
who
great.
knows? Who cares? They get out, and they have to stop at they have to stop at a red light. It's pretty urgent. There's a red light coming up. You better stop. And Wang and Miao Yin just start making out. And they have a little. Doesn't that just make you feel good? Terrific. Lights green. You can go. And then it ends with a little party. They're getting a little shawarma, having a little egg foo young at the Chinese restaurant. Egg
Hmm.
goes to wander the earth because Lopan is dead and he wants a vacation.
Hmm.
And
Evil spell's been lifted, my work's done, and all that sort of stuff. Yep.
yep, he's heading. The Avengers are heading out to their separate things. They're going their own separate ways. Margot, the writer, and Jimmy are gonna meet up at her place later to help her find a title for the piece that she's working on. And you know what? If it's Big Trouble in Little China, pretty good stuff.
Pretty good title.
Pretty
Yep.
good title. Coming full circle on that. Miao Yin and Jimmy are nice and happy. Wang gives Jack the money, double or triple or nothing. Not
Says nothing or triple.
There's nothing or triple. And Jack corrects him because nothing or double. He goes, "Nah, triple. You earned it." It's like, you know what? I did. Thanks, and just takes it.
That's such a great moment. He says, "No, triple, you've earned it." He says, "You're right, I did. Thanks, Wang."
You're right. I did.
He didn't take much convincing there.
And he turns to Grace. He says, "You know what? Last chance. I'll give up the open road, sell my truck, and settle down." She says, "I couldn't have that on my conscience. The only way it might work is if you buy a bigger truck, one with a cozy little apartment in the back, just big enough for two." He's like, sounds pretty great, but you know something? Sooner or later, I rub everyone the wrong way, and then he sees her kind of getting a little crestfallen. He goes, "Well, let me think about it." Um, there's a little bit more hope there.
Well, let me think about
Let
it.
me
Let me
think
sleep
about
on
it. And Margot's like, "God, aren't you even gonna kiss her goodbye?" Yeah. Nope.
it. It's like he fancies the like scene where she's like, "I love you," and he says, "I know,"
In Star Wars.
in Star Wars, but it's like, "Aren't you gonna kiss her goodbye?" Nope.
Nope.
He just leaves.
She's gonna see you around, Burton. He's like, never can tell. The
It's so
lines,
funny.
the dialogue is so funny. Like he thinks he's Snake Plissken.
Yeah, he thinks he's a hot shot, clever guy, but she okay. To be clear, she said, "See you around, Burton." He says, "Never can tell." Like that doesn't follow exactly there, but I guess I get what you were going for.
Oh god. Him and Wang have a little bit of a little have their goodbye. He says, "We really shook the pillars of heaven, didn't we, Wang?" No horse
No
shit,
horse
Jack. So
shit.
they trade their
Yeah.
lines a little bit. No horse shit.
Hmm.
He does his salute. Uh,
And he's in the Pork
he's
Chop
in the pork chop.
Express.
You just listen to the old Pork Chop Express here now and take his advice on a dark and stormy night when the lightning's crashing and the thunder's rolling and the rain's coming down in sheets thick as lead. Just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks that big old storm square in the eye and he says, "Give me your best shot, pal. I can take it." And then the goober monster pops out of the back of the truck. He
He goes,
does the little
"Wow."
sting, blah, blah, blah. And then the movie's over. And there's an
That's Big
absolute
Trouble.
banger of a song over the credits,
Yes.
and it's Big Trouble in Little China.
And that's Big Trouble in Little China. So I love his little final speech here because it's like, what has he learned after all this? Um,
Not much.
essentially nothing.
It's a little bit like
Essentially,
the end of Burn After Reading. It's like, what did we learn from that?
I guess we learned to never do it again. This is like the opposite. Like what has he learned? I guess his advice is basically the same. It's only been affirmed by the fact that he's been through hell and his attitude carried him to success. So his advice hasn't changed at all. It's like when life, comes at you, what do you say? You look life square in the eye and say, "Give me your best shot, I can take it." And that's been his attitude throughout the movie. And even though like he starts off like having that attitude but never actually having it be tested, and then it gets tested and by the end he's like, "Yeah, I was right all along." It's it's like, "Hell yeah, brother."
They have
That's all
right.
I'm talking about. That's American exceptionalism. That's American exceptionalism right there, baby. What it's all about.
Yeah.
May the wings of liberty never lose a
May the
feather.
wings of
Hell
liberty
yeah.
never lose a feather. Goddamn right. So, just one more fun little thing I wanted to point out that I forgot to do earlier in the movie. When the title for Big Trouble in Little China shows up, there is some Chinese characters in the middle of it.
The logo, yeah.
They do not directly translate to Big Trouble in Little China on purpose. What they
That's fun.
say is evil spirits make a big scene in Little Chinatown.
That's funny.
Yeah, deliberately chosen by John
Rock,
Carpenter.
flag, and eagle, baby. Yeah, it's such a great ending. It's such a fantastic ending for that character. He's just like, "Yep, I was right all along."
Yeah, it's funny. I heard I heard a thing about how like some people who go very deep into the whole like he's an action hero who's kind of dumb kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
They're like, oh yeah, and he's probably gonna die when that goober monster gets him out of the truck, right? And I'm just like, yeah, that's not what the movie
No,
thinks. The movie does not
no,
think that this is the end of Jack Burton. Um,
no.
this I think very much this could have continued to sort of be like a farcical Yojimbo sort of thing where the truck
Yeah.
driver is like the wandering Ronin who just keeps coming
Exactly.
upon a bunch of different situations in different places in America, and
Yeah.
like his hapless attitude uh gets him through it. You know, like
Hmm.
sees him through. I think this
Yeah.
really easily could have become a very fun series.
Could have
But
if it was successful,
if it
but
had been
alas, that's
successful,
not what
but it,
happened.
it didn't happen. Now it stands alone as a very unique, very interesting cult classic movie.
Incredibly unique. There's really nothing like it, honestly. There's
Yeah,
nothing that combines all of the elements that this movie has. There are schlocky, campy, fantasy kung fu movies. They're sort of like deconstructionist action hero movies. But nothing has all of it.
yeah,
And what I quite like about that ending, I've sort of hinted at it already, but it's basically like he's just kind of carrying on exactly how he was. He never, you know, he had more confidence than he earned coming into the story, and then he's tested and comes out thinking that, yeah, I passed. And everything I thought at the beginning of the movie is still perfectly correct, and so I'm just going to keep on carrying on, man. And he's mostly unaffected by all the sort of supernatural things he witnessed. Mostly he's just like, what the hell, and then
what the
keeps
hell?
going keeps going with his life. Like, just so presumably if there was another story, he would be equally like confused about any supernatural thing that happens in that one too.
Yeah,
It's just so funny. And it's a fun sort of loving pastiche of sort of American main character syndrome, if you will. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
It's
So
so good. It's so good.
there was a moment when I thought for a second. So back in 2018, I don't know if you ever saw this. Um, have you heard of a movie called Overlord?
Yes, I have, but I've not seen it.
Okay. I stumbled on that one. Just like I was spending a lot of time in movie theaters. It's like it was like, oh, what's this? Oh, Nazi zombies? Sure. Like, fuck it, I'll go see that. Why not? It's 2018. That's not been done to death just yet. Let's go ahead and see what this is about. And that movie, Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's kid, is
Mhm.
in that film in a
I really
role
like
that
I
I
really
would
like Wyatt
describe as
Russell.
sort of like a Snake Plissken type character.
Sweet.
And there was a moment where I really thought that Wyatt Russell's career was about to become sort of like what Kurt Russell's career was with working with John Carpenter, where I was like, we could easily see like Wyatt Russell's version of like Escape from New York, right? Or his version
Yeah.
of Big Trouble in Little China. Overlord was not a particularly successful movie. I don't think they marketed it very much. So like it was made on a $38 million budget and it made 41 million. I'm pretty sure the marketing budget was close to zero. So like it
Yeah.
mildly successful. But I really thought for a second that we were going to start getting more movies like this again, but alas, Wyatt
It's
Russell
not it's
then
not
gave in to the Marvel
it's
lure.
not too late though. He's got a lot of years ahead of him, and
He
I quite
does.
like him. Wyatt Russell. He's it's fun. I watched that crappy Blumhouse movie Night Swim. Night Swim is the what if a pool was scary? And the fun thing about that movie is that Wyatt Russell is like doing his best Jack Torrance from The Shining in a movie where everyone else is trying to play it really serious. He's like kind of hamming it up and being goofy because he understands. He
Yeah.
understands that that's the best thing you could do in a crappy movie like that. So I have a lot of hope for Wyatt Russell. I'd like to see him in more better things.
Yes. I mean, I think he's the best part of what the things that I've seen him in. Like he
Oh,
seems
for
to have
sure.
his dad's attitude and
Yeah,
charisma.
yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
there's just like a stage presence to those Russell boys that
Yeah,
you can't fake.
can't
That's
fake
something
it.
that yeah.
Can't fake it. But yes, wrapping things up here, Big Trouble in Little China, worth the hype, cult classic. Shame it wasn't as beloved as it deserved to be when it came out, but glad it sort of has the
Turns out it was
reputation.
particularly well reviewed by critics. For the most part, it just didn't like it didn't make a lot of
Well,
money.
yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, it only has like a 7.2 on IMDb, which is like that's good, but I think it's better than that. You know what I mean? I think, I think it's an incredible movie. Like if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, yeah, it has a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like that's lower than Thunderbolts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Oof.
not the Rotten Tomatoes really like deserves a lot of credit in general, but like I think this movie is better than it is reviewed, and I think it's nice that it has the cult following it has. But this is the kind of movie that I would have seen earlier if I knew if I knew it was going to be this good. Like I understood, like, oh, it's one of the better Carpenter movies. Yeah, some people really like it. Finally got around to watching it, and it's just like this is incredible. I love this movie. I can't wait to watch it again instantly. It's just so much fun. It's the most fun I've had watching a movie in a while.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up here, Oiled and Lubed Phalanx says, please watch Possession 1981 and Suspiria 2018. Possession 1981 is definitely on my list. I still haven't seen the original Suspiria, so maybe we'll do both of those at some
Yeah, we
point
can
in the
do
future.
a
But
compare contrast.
sure, yeah, absolutely.
I've
Yeah,
never.
I think.
Okay. I have not seen Possession, but this one is also on my list because I like Sam
Yeah,
Neill.
yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, so yeah,
All right. Well,
Big
there's
Trouble
Big
in
Trouble
Little
in Little China,
China.
everybody. Thanks for sticking with
It's
us.
it's it's such a blast. We got to wrap things up shortly because I got places to be. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the super chats. I hope you had fun walking through this movie. I know we did. It's such a blast. It's such a fun movie. Such a funny movie. I love Kurt Russell in this movie. It's one of his best roles, and he's got a couple absolute bangers. So it was fun to talk about. It was fun to dive into. Thanks for joining
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah.
Hope you had a fun time.
Hope you had a fun
And
time here on the Porkchop Express.
you know what Jack always says in a time like this?
What?
What the hell?
What's that? What's going on
What?
here?
How'd you get that? Where do you come from? I'm a pretty reasonable guy, but I've just seen a lot of pretty unreasonable things. Yeah, good times. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next time. Maybe it's Alice in Wonderland, maybe it's something else, but we'll see you. We'll see you next Sunday
We'll see you then.
for whatever that is. Thanks for joining us again. Bye bye. See you later. Have a good time. Stay hydrated.